All right, you and I are starting with a guy locked in his room because of his trash family and friends who brutally betrayed him. To escape the pain, he shut himself away, pouring all his time into gaming. He became the absolute best Minecraft player alive, building massive digital worlds where no one could ever reach him or hurt him again. Until one night, a blazing portal of fire ripped open right in his bedroom. Out stepped Baphomet, a legendary high-ranking demon of hell, with a very simple business proposal. Hell was completely packed and needed to expand. He wanted Sung Ji to design the 20th circle of hell. In exchange, he offered him the power to drag any traitor straight down into it. Sung Ji didn't hesitate for a second, choosing betrayal as his theme. He created an inescapable nightmare, and once it was ready, he targeted those who ruined his life. The kid who wouldn't leave his room now held a deadly key, and he knew exactly which doors to unlock. His backstabbing friends are going to pay first. After that, maybe he will reshape the world, avoiding the exact same mistakes as Kira. But to understand this, we have to go back a few days. 18-year-old Yeom Sung-ji lived in a room that looked like a dusty storage unit. Windows tightly shut, the ultimate gamer zone of pure, miserable isolation. Outside, his dad was violently slamming the door, screaming for him to get out. Honestly, his dad was the main reason he refused to leave. The woman next to him tried to play peacekeeper, begging for patience. She moved in the moment Sung-ji's mother abandoned them, clearly caring more about her own comfort than the traumatized kid in the bedroom. Finally, the couple left for dinner, giving our main character a moment of peace. Sung-ji listened in silence. Just then, his phone buzzed with a text from Kim Sung-hwan, smugly announcing his school suspension was over, inviting him back to get beat up all over again. Now pay attention, because 3 months ago at school, a massive fist connected with Sung-ji's face, sending him crashing into the floor. The entire bully squad laughed and mocked the kid on the ground, except for one guy who looked slightly guilty. That bruised boy was Yeom Sung-ji, and the gang leader barked at him to stand back up for round 2. Yeom Sung-ji crawled forward, begging Sung-hwan, his old elementary school best friend who looked uneasy, to help him. Sung-hwan stared down at his beaten friend, memories of their childhood flashing before his eyes. But he is snapped back to reality when the gang leader mocks him, asking if he was actually close with a pathetic loser like that, teasing him for being a total coward. Desperate to save his own reputation, Sung-hwan chose status over loyalty and kicked his friend. He laughed it off, lying that they were never close, asking where he got such a stupid idea. Sung-hwan kept striking him, while the others cheered on the humiliation. Even with a bloodied face, Yeom Sung-ji muttered through the pain, warning Sung-hwan never to call him a friend again. The guy refused to be a loser. Returning to the present, Sung-ji remained glued to his computer screen. Honestly, can you blame him for wanting to stay locked away from this cruel world? On screen, a prompt appeared, asking if he wanted to save the Hellcraft map. He clicked yes and started the upload process. While waiting, he scrolled through the brutal zones he had spent days designing. At least in his virtual world, betrayal didn't exist. He posted the download link to the game's community forum, and within minutes, messages of excitement and praise flooded his notifications. Collapsing onto his bed, Yeom Sung-ji tried to convince himself this virtual life was enough. But deep down, he knew hiding in his room forever making game maps was just a lie. He was desperately lonely, terrified that stepping outside meant facing another knife in the back. After a restless nap, he dragged himself out of bed. You and I both know his dad and stepmother were fast asleep by now. Sung-ji checked his monitor for feedback, finding players raving about how insanely difficult and detailed his new map was. He felt a rare spark of joy seeing people love his creation. But suddenly, a strange notification popped up in the corner of his monitor, showing a bizarre message that caught him off guard. It read, "Hello human, I enjoyed your game. It actually rivals real hell. Can we meet face to face to discuss designing a real hell?" Sung-ji laughed, thinking some weird kid was trying to roleplay a job interview. After all, how could they meet when they hadn't even set a location? Suddenly, a chilling, deep voice echoed from the shadows, saying tracking down a mortal's home was child's play. A sharp snap of fingers cut through the silence. Suddenly, a glowing rift of flames began tearing open right inside his bedroom. Sung-ji panicked, thinking his entire place was catching fire. But out of the burning embers, a massive silhouette began to materialize, petrifying the young man. The entity's deep, rumbling voice vibrated through the walls as he introduced himself. He claimed to be Baphomet, the ruler of the brand new 20th Hell. Sung-ji just sighed, convinced his months of isolation and depression had finally caused him to completely lose his mind. He was seeing demons now, but heavy footsteps echoed as Baphomet stepped forward, grabbing his arm and lifting him easily. He growled that he was no illusion, he came to exploit the boy's talent. Sung-ji was paralyzed. this was actually happening. He wrenched himself free and scrambled backward, but Baphomet coldly warned him to behave, threatening to rip open his skull and consume his brain to absorb his brilliant design ideas. Moments later, they sat across from each other like a bizarre corporate job interview, while the nervous teenager cracked open a cold soda. Asking if he was a genuine demon, Baphomet boasted that he was actually a high-ranking lord of the underworld. The devil calmly took a sip of the boy's soda, while Sung-ji, trying to stay calm, asked if he had actually played his custom-made Hellcraft map. Baphomet nodded, admitting he was deeply impressed. While the map wasn't massive, it was incredibly clever. Even though escaping was impossible, it gave a cruel illusion of hope, a false light at the end of the tunnel, specifically designed to lure and torture players. Despite being sadistic, the layout possessed a brilliant artistic dignity. Sung-ji stared at him, quietly remembering that he drew all that sick inspiration from his own burning hatred. The archdemon explained that hell was running out of room, requiring immediate expansion, and he was appointed ruler of this new territory. Because of this, he needed Sung-ji to act as his lead architect. He wanted this fresh hell to look just like Hellcraft, only far more brutal. Sung-ji weighed his options but initially refused, wanting no part of demon politics. He was content to rot in his messy room. Baphomet sneered, asking how he could be satisfied with such a pathetic existence. Then he offered one final incentive, explaining that before the official grand opening, they would need to run trial runs. That detail immediately caught the teenager's attention. The ultimate offer was simple. If he designed this torture chamber, he would gain the absolute power to throw any sinner he wanted right into it. Those high school bullies who backstabbed him, he could drag them into his personal nightmare. Just like that, Yeom Sung-ji reached his final verdict. Driven by pure, unfiltered hatred for those who broke him, he decided to become the Dark Architect. He reached out and grabbed the key. If building a literal hell meant crushing those parasites, he would gladly sell his soul. Without a moment of doubt, he took the key as if he had been waiting for this exact chance. Baphomet grinned and clapped his hands, officially sealing their terrifying blood contract. Surrendering completely to his deepest grudges, the boy did the unthinkable. Without a second thought, he shook hands with the devil and signed away his humanity. Baphomet asked what theme his domain would have, explaining that every underworld requires two critical ingredients. Intrigued, the young architect asked what they needed. First, it must be themed around a specific crime, and since greed or lying are already taken, he has to choose a new sin. What do you think he will pick? Trust me, you and I are about to watch his ultimate revenge unfold. All right, you and I are diving straight into a story where building hell is a literal job. First, the creator needs a theme for his targets, and second, the layout must be inescapable. After all, hell is meant to torture sinners forever. If a single soul escapes, the hell vanishes and its creator dies. Basically, if there is even one tiny flaw in the world Yeom Sung-ji builds, Baphomet is the one who will pay the ultimate price. But the demon just laughs it off. He warns the kid that if a flaw appears and he dies, he will personally drag the boy's soul down to dust first. Yeom Sung-ji swallows hard. It is go time. With a simple snap of Baphomet's fingers, reality twists. The sky bleeds crimson as violent lightning storms begin tearing through the city clouds. A massive bolt strikes the house, surging straight into his computer. Suddenly, his game's interface transforms. Now, as he codes the layout on screen, demon minions are physically building it in real time. His entire computer is now directly linked to the underworld. It is finally time for this ordinary human to show what he can really do. A construction sign pops up, and Baphomet just chills, watching the show while chugging sodas one after another. Meanwhile, his hellish crew stands ready to get their hands dirty. They are just waiting for the kid's signal. The foreman gives the green light, and the tiny minions rush forward, stacking heavy blocks one by one to shape the underworld. All this time, Baphomet watches him. In the mortal world, exactly 7 days, 4 hours, and 37 minutes have ticked by since they signed their contract. The kid hasn't even slept, hyper-focused on designing a massive, terrifying castle. The demon wonders if the boy is just naturally gifted, or if pure hatred is driving him. Either way, Baphomet chose well. Suddenly, the kid announces the project is finally finished. Baphomet claps in excitement, genuinely impressed by how fast he worked. The custom hell is ready, and now, it just needs a proper name. And the name is Betrayal, a designated hell for backstabbers. On his monitor, the system prompt pops up again, asking a question he already knows by heart. He clicks yes, saving the brand new map. After months of locking himself away, he finally steps out of his room and spots his stepmother in the kitchen. It is payback time. Baphomet warns him of the rules. He can only banish someone who has actually committed the sin of betrayal. The target must fit the crime, or the magic simply won't work. But if the key glows, the gates will open to drag the sinner straight down. Now watch closely as the boy approaches his stepmother, who is busy flexing her new purse online. She immediately mocks him, telling him to take a shower because he stinks, just like his mother. Hearing those toxic words, Yom Sung-ji looks down at the glowing key in his palm. It is a tricky situation, since this hell was literally just built. No betrayal has actually happened within its targeted rule set yet. He probably needs to wait, but the vile woman keeps nagging, asking why he had to ruin her mood by coming out while she is trying to choose the perfect picture. Her whining makes him want to banish her immediately. She is absolute trash. Decades ago, at just 23, his own mother was practically sold off into an arranged marriage. Because of that, she suffered constant abuse from her husband's family. Yet, she always kept a warm smile for her son. But then, everything completely fell apart. She had every reason to weep, but she chose to stay strong. He hated hearing them fight and hated seeing his mother covered in bruises while pretending she was fine. Eventually, she was kicked out. If his father had left for actual love, it might hurt less. Instead, she was replaced by a gold-digging younger woman. Worse, he often heard her mocking his father to her friends. The toxic viper did not even try to hide it, and she even threatened the boy. She warned him to stay quiet unless he wanted to be thrown out too. She was a total parasite, destroying a family just to fund her lifestyle. As she gets more annoyed, the boy builds up his courage. He bluntly asks how much cash she wants to walk away from his father forever. She freezes, totally confused. He tells her to drop the axe since everyone knows she is only here for the wealth. Offended, she glares at him, wondering who this brat thinks he is. But then, he drops a massive bait. He offers his own 100 million won college fund, plus his father's secret investments. In total, it is about 1 billion won. Hearing that, her eyes gleam with pure greed. Skeptical but tempted, she follows him into the room and watches him crack open the master safe. Before this, she only dreamed of luxury bags and securing a small property. But if this kid is telling the truth, she's going to be set for life. Inside the safe are glittering gold bars, investment files, and piles of cold cash. He hands her a stack, telling her she can easily use this fortune to start over abroad. But she hesitates. Why is he handing this over? Baphomet is highly amused. I know what you're thinking. Is she actually smart enough to sense the trap here? How does he seal the deal? Simple. He plays his card. The boy bursts into tears, sobbing that he just wants his real mom back and begging her to take it and leave. Even the watching archdevil is stunned by the kid's brilliant performance. Playing the desperate, emotional child made taking her down as easy as taking candy from a baby. She immediately starts stuffing her purse with cash. She fell for the bait hook, line, and sinker. Just like that, the ultimate betrayal against his father is set. She demands his card passwords, but he coldly replies she won't be needing them where she's headed. Confused, she turns. Right as his dark key begins to glow, he slots it into thin air. Lightning fractures the air as a massive door materializes. With a heavy click, it swings wide, and scaled tentacles burst forth to drag the screaming stepmother straight into the abyss. Her shrieks vanish instantly as the gates slam shut. He has just banished a living human. She wakes up trapped in a heavy concrete cell, with absolutely no escape. Suddenly, the solid walls begin grinding inward, crushing her space. Baphomet watches the entire torture sequence play out on his screen. He offers the kid a front row seat, but the boy claims he feels sick. The demon asks if he feels guilty, but is completely stunned when the kid suddenly bursts into laughter. Yom Sung-ji quickly throws on his school uniform. Having been locked away for months, his body is noticeably thin. Even Baphomet is shocked the kid just banished his stepmother, yet he's already hunt-ready. The boy simply replies that as long as he holds the power, he won't stop. After all, what is the point of an empty hell? While doing this for pure amusement is dark, the archdevil has to agree. Screams are what make a hell truly authentic, and stocking it up with fresh sinners is absolute art. The boy zips up his backpack and steps out. It has been 3 whole months since he set foot in school, and now he is heading out to hunt his next victim. Slowly, the population of his special hell is going to grow. This is getting way wilder than expected. At school, classmates peer anxiously out of the classroom windows. They joke about a celebrity arriving, only to realize the dropout kid is back. And trust me, you and I are going to want to see how this crazy hunt continues. Alright, you and I are diving into a story where everyone wonders why he returned. The local school gang is already waiting, and they definitely aren't letting his comeback slide. The whole classroom goes dead silent as the tension spikes. Everyone watches on the edge of their seats, terrified of how his return is going to wreck this fragile peace. But Yum Sangye has a completely different plan in mind. Right on cue, the bullies kick the classroom door open, and their leader sneers, calling him an idiot for actually showing his face again. They quickly surround him, mockingly wishing he had warned them so they could prepare a warm welcome. Amusingly, the demon Baphomet completely misinterprets this, assuming Sangye is just some incredibly popular school celebrity. The reality is far worse. One bully aggressively slams our main character's notebook onto the floor, whining that Sangye's previous trouble left a nasty stain on his own academic record. In their eyes, causing trouble means paying up. They threaten him to follow quietly if he doesn't want to get beaten in public. Next thing we know, they corner him in the boys' bathroom 5 against 1. Talk about a cowardly setup. The loudest thug keeps crying about his clean record, trying to shift the blame onto Sangye himself. They act like beating him up was just some unfortunate accident they were forced into. Sangye stays dead silent, calmly taking in their pathetic excuses. And right on cue, a heavy fist flies forward, hitting him square in the face. That eerie silence completely triggers the big bully. Meanwhile, Baphomet watches the whole thing unfold like a VIP movie, realizing this is what humans call cornering a victim. At this rate, the demon notes it will be tough to make any of these thugs commit the sin of betrayal. So, how is Yum Sung-ji going to play this? He slowly wipes the blood from his lips with one clear goal, dragging every single one of them to hell. Since there is zero trust between him and these predators, he can't directly trigger a self-betrayal. But humanity has always relied on tools to slaughter beasts far larger than themselves. He just needs to use his brain. For this hunt, his ultimate weapon is actually embarrassingly simple. The bullies burst out laughing when he reaches into his pocket, instantly assuming he brought some cheap pocket knife for self-defense. Now pay attention here, because instead of a blade, he pulls out 5,000 rees. He is using cold, hard cash, but a simple bribe makes no sense. They can just beat him and take it anyway. He calmly admits he is fine with taking the beating, but calls their treatment unfair. Baphomet gets absolutely hyped watching this drama unfold as Sung-ji drops the cash right on the dirty floor. He claims he only has one single condition for them. An angry Sung-hwan grits his teeth and lunges forward, but the gang leader suddenly stops him, wanting to hear what he has to say. When money is involved, greed always wins. Right on cue, they take the bait. The boss kneels to scoop up the cash, realizing that if this kid can easily throw away 5,000, he must have a lot more hidden. He asks what the request is. Sung-ji points directly at Kim Sung-hwan and tells them he wants them to beat him up instead. Instantly, all eyes lock onto the horrified bully. If that cash is not enough, he promises there is plenty more where it came from. He demands they destroy the traitor who used to be his friend. The trap is perfectly laid. The hunt is officially on. The boss lets out a dark chuckle, finding this whole situation hilarious, and greedily shoves the money deep into his pocket. He mockingly congratulates Sung-won for trying to deny it, but decides their friendship deserves a fitting end. He tells him to consider the next few minutes as a special little payback session. The enforcer tries to grab him, but Sung-hwan desperately ducks away, screaming that they were never friends. He begs them not to listen to scum like Sung-ji, but the boss just smirks at the word scum. The shameless boss replies that they are simply collecting cash from a dear friend. Sung-won stands frozen in utter disbelief, his eyes burning with absolute rage as he glares down at the floor. Furious, he grabs Sung-ji by the collar, screaming at him for dragging him into this absolute nightmare. He demands to know what kind of friend would do this, completely losing his mind. Sung-ji just calmly points out that since they were childhood friends, sharing this brutal nightmare is only fair. Enraged, the brown-haired bully swings to punch him, but is immediately shut down. A heavy hand grips his collar and violently hurls him across the room. The thugs got paid, and now it is time to deliver the goods. Sung-ji even negotiates the price of 500 rees per punch, settling on a solid 10-hit beatdown to equal the 5,000 cash. Without waiting even a second more, the gang starts counting their brutal strikes while he just watches. Let's pause. You and I both know how satisfying this revenge is, watching these monsters get humiliated. The wet impacts sound much softer when you aren't the one taking them. He finds the whole display incredibly boring and wonders why bullies find it so fun. Slipping his hand into his pocket, he grips the hell key, having successfully turned them against each other. Baphomet notes this tactic is completely different from how he handled his stepmother. The young man prepares to summon the portal, raising his voice to grab their attention. Like startled prey, they spin around instantly. They demand to know what he is doing, and he softly replies that it is time to test their courage. He slides the key into empty air, and a swirling portal begins to tear open. The heavy iron doors of hell swing open. Giant, writhing tentacles emerge, snatching the terrified bullies one by one. The leader desperately tries to hold on to the frame, but Sung-ji shows absolutely zero mercy. This trash was feared by the students as a demon, so it is only fitting. Memories of their cruelty flash through his mind, the endless physical pain and agonizing psychological torture he endured. Now that garbage will feel right at home in hell. He calmly pries the leader's clinging fingers off the doorframe, letting the abyss swallow him whole. The only survivor is Sung-won, shaking like a leaf. Sung-ji turns his cold gaze toward his former friend while an amused Baphomet watches them. He slowly steps forward as the terrified boy crawls backward. He asks if his old friend is curious about what just happened. It sounds completely insane, but he explains he literally opened the gates of hell using a key he obtained just hours ago. Sung-won desperately asks if he is going to be spared. Suddenly, distant memories of their innocent childhood together flash before him, reminding him of much simpler and happier times. Snapping back to reality, he admits he still considered him a friend despite everything. The proxy beating he just endured was more than enough to settle their score. Sung-hwan whimpers that he was actually terrified of those monsters too. Hearing this brings a small sense of relief, offering a tiny hope that they might slowly rebuild what they lost. As he turns to leave, the key slips from his hand and drops onto the floor. Staring at it, Sung-hwan remembers what that key is capable of, and greedily snatches it up without a second thought. He sneers, telling Sung-ji not to act superior just because he got him beaten. But when he opens his fist to inspect his prize, he realizes it is just a worthless, ordinary key. Sung-ji deliberately dropped his regular dorm key while keeping the real one safe. His old friend completely blew his final chance at redemption, sealing his fate as a sinner bound for hell. Baphomet applauds, absolutely loving the theatrical ending. However, Sung-ji reveals that dropping the key was not meant as a malicious trap, but a genuine test. He honestly wanted to give his friend a chance. The traitor who backstabbed him has hit absolute rock bottom, though in the underworld, there is no real bottom. Everyone burns the same, but things are quickly about to get boring again. And that's where we leave it for now. Sung-ji washes his face, accepting his dark destiny, while the demon admits he cannot figure him out. Trust me, things are about to get chaotic. Let's dive into this wild ride where sending a toxic stepmother to hell is just the warm-up. But looking at his classmate, he suddenly reacted with pure disgust over his own actions. Honestly, Baphomet was the last person who should judge him, but the tension in the air was stifling. Finally, Yam Sung-ji turned off the faucet and told the demon to chill. He refused to let doubt mess with his head. This heavy feeling? It was not guilt or pity. He was just mad at himself for being so pathetic, for letting those miserable traitors ruin his life for so long. This human kept exceeding all expectations. Baphomet was deeply impressed, confident he had chosen the perfect contractor. The sun set over the city as they returned home, but their peace was about to be interrupted. Because right there, a massive demon had his head poking straight out of the living room window in the weirdest way. He was keeping an eye on a man entering the building. Recognizing the target, the demon grinned and announced that Yam Sung-ji's father had returned. The young man stayed quiet, calculating his next move. Baphomet was practically drooling, eager to see what savage trap the kid would unleash next. After all, there was zero trust here, especially after the kid spent 6 months hiding away, and a money trap was useless since it belonged to the old man anyway. But Yam Sung-ji scoffed. He had no intention of using cheap tricks like that because they simply would not work. Footsteps echoed as the front door creaked open. Baphomet desperately wanted a spoiler as the old man entered. See, this father ran a shady little insurance firm with sky-high premiums, making a living off of scams. Basically, he got rich by rejecting claims from honest, paying customers. The old man stepped inside, immediately demanding to know who his son was talking to. He sneered, mocking his son for locking himself away, playing video games and going crazy. He even called him a complete failure, comparing him directly to his late mother. Yam Sung-ji pulled the glowing key from his pocket, showing it to the demon. Just as he promised, he did not need a complex trap for this trash of a father. Now, pay attention here because this next move is absolutely ruthless. When the abusive old man raises his hand to slap him, Yam Sung-ji does not even flinch. He just quietly activates the hell portal. He finally understood why this monster abandoned his mother and treated his own flesh and blood like garbage. Denying desperate people their rights for years had made betrayal a permanent habit. The young man twisted the key, and the heavy iron gates of hell creaked open. The old man froze in pure confusion. It was too easy. With a simple farewell, another sinner was dragged screaming into the abyss. The old man begged for mercy, but his son coldly told him there was no escape from this nightmare. The gate slammed shut, cutting off the desperate screams. Baphomet stared at the dark dimension where the man was trapped. but as the computer screen hummed, dead silence filled the apartment once more. Yam Sung-ji picked up a fallen picture frame from the dusty shelf, staring at an old family photo. Curiously, the demon asked if his vengeance was complete and what he planned to do next. The demon waited anxiously. Then came an unbelievable twist. Yam Sung-ji calmly announced that it was time to turn himself in. Sitting right there in the interrogation room, he confessed everything, while Baphomet watched invisibly. Suddenly, a portal ripped open and a demonic subordinate stepped through. It turned out the master himself, Lucifer, wanted a word. It was highly likely they were going to discuss the newly created domain. Stepping through the rift, he arrived at the Dark King's castle, where an elite council of 11 powerful demons was already waiting for Baphomet's arrival. The massive doors opened, and he entered the throne room. A powerful, smooth voice echoed, announcing that all 12 had finally gathered. That commanding voice belonged to the King of Hell himself. Lucifer sat proudly on his dark throne, watching the Lord of the 20th Hell arrive. Baphomet looked around, highly suspicious of why 12 rival demons who hated each other were in the same room. Lucifer motioned for him to sit. Baphomet approached his chair, but demanded an explanation first, wanting to know why he was summoned last. I know what you're thinking, high rank means power, right? Well, wrong. The Supreme King instantly forces everyone down. They are all just terrified puppets in his presence with absolutely zero free will. That was Gargamon, an elite high demon. It seemed they were about to discuss new laws for the underworld, and absolutely none of the lords looked pleased about it. The king reminded them that while he allowed them to build their own hells, he never actually signed a contract stating they would get to keep full ownership of those domains. In other words, their custom-made domains were never guaranteed to become official. A demoness named Lizanne chimed in, realizing they were responsible for managing these realms but held absolutely zero official power over them in the end. Lucifer agreed with a wicked grin. But here was the real catch. None of them had built their realms alone. They had all recruited a special human to design their torture chambers. Baphomet assumed nobody else had his genius, but it made perfect sense. After all, the greatest domain ever made was the Hell of Disbelief, designed by a human named Dante. A grotesque giant eye twitched, demanding attention. That was Sadius, another high demon, and he wanted to know exactly what the king was planning to do next. The answer was brutally simple. He would select the ultimate hell to merge with the official underworld and completely destroy the rest. Shock rippled through the room as their worst nightmare came true. Lucifer was ordering a brutal battle royale between the creators. Meanwhile, back at the station, Yum Sung-ji sat quietly in the cold interrogation room. He went there to throw off the cops by reporting his missing parents, but his plan hit a massive snag. Suddenly, reports flooded in about a group of missing high school bullies. Terrified parents begged for answers. After all, 6 people had vanished from the exact same neighborhood in 24 hours, and he was the only common link between them. But why was he so reckless? Why did he send everyone to hell all at once within just a couple of days? The reason was simple: they could never convict him. Sure, he knew the victims, but there was not a single eyewitness who saw him open the gates of hell, and absolutely zero evidence like weapons or bodies to build a case. Circumstantial links mean nothing in court. The law requires hard proof, which they did not have. Yum Sung-ji smirked, knowing he was safe. He was about to walk free. The frustrated junior detective admitted they had absolutely nothing on the kid, asking his boss what their next move should be. No ordinary teenager could wipe away every single trace of a crime like this. In a situation like this, they had no choice but to let him go, muttered Detective Chief Park Sang-sik. But before releasing him, the chief wanted one last chat and ordered the interrogation mics turned off. Stepping into the room, he offered a fake apology for putting the kid through this right after his parents vanished. Throwing out some bait, the detective claimed they were just doing their job, adding that he was sure the boy was not a killer. Yum Sung-ji stayed quiet. He technically did not kill anyone, he just dragged them to hell. But his eyes widened had he accidentally said that out loud. Because right there, the detective was holding a familiar, glowing key. Park Sang-sik grinned, asking if he was shocked. Turns out, Yum Sung-ji was not the only contractor chosen by hell. Talk about a jaw-dropping plot twist. And trust me, you and I are going to want to see exactly how he survives this game of hellish predators. Let's dive into this wild scene where a suspicious detective corners our main character, Yum Sung-ji. This cop's instincts are terrifyingly sharp, and it's hard to tell if he actually knows the truth or is just playing mind games. But ignoring the mind games, one thing is absolutely clear. As the two lock eyes, Yum Sung-ji decides that if this guy gets in his way, he will just drag him straight to hell like all the rest. Framing the detective for a sin of betrayal would be a piece of cake. But out of nowhere, the air tears open, and the demon Baphomet completely crashes the interrogation through a massive portal. Suddenly, a second portal opens across the room, and another high-ranking demon named Gargamon steps through. Yum Sung-ji freezes in sheer shock as the newcomer smirks, noting they have met once again. It seems their chosen humans have finally crossed paths. The masked demon mocks them, saying it is great to meet again, but warns Baphomet to control his little pet because this nerdy human looks ready to unleash hell itself at any second. The horned demon tells his human to chill out. The real show hasn't even started yet. Confused, Yum Sung-ji demands to know what is happening. He never expected other humans to have these terrifying powers. Baphomet admits he is surprised too, but reveals that 12 different demons are using humans to build 12 custom hells, and only one will survive. That means the ultimate game of death is about to begin. Gargamon tells the detective to release the boy for now, letting him take out other rivals and thin the competition. The detective agrees, admitting he was planning to let him go anyway, since legally, there is no way to prove the kids did it. Plus, since the cop uses hellish powers too, he is just as dirty as Yum Sung-gi. Baphomet agrees that humans are incredibly useful tools, and Gargamon makes a good point. Unleashing their abilities too early makes them targets, making survival almost impossible. Besides, Baphomet still has a lot of explaining to do to his chosen human. The cop opens the interrogation door, and the two walk out together, leaving Yum Sung-ji absolutely furious that other people possess the same deadly abilities. Now pay attention, because back in the room, things get incredibly tense. The demon tells his human, Park Sang-sik, that their hell is far superior, meaning they can just use the others as absolute bait. Park Sang-sik vows to do whatever it takes to survive, believing it is the only way to build a truly just world. By the time Yum Sung-gi finally gets home, night has fallen. He collapses onto his bed, completely overwhelmed. Not only did that detective expose his secret, but the cop is actually a creator of hell too. He screams, realizing he almost got dragged to eternal damnation. Baphomet tells him to stop crying, pointing out that he chose to walk into that police station. Yum Sung-ji tries to shift the blame, angry that the demon never warned him about rivals. Before he can keep whining, the demon suddenly grabs him by the face and slams him hard against the wall. Yum Sung-ji seriously needs to watch his mouth. He is dealing with a high-tier demon who can rip his soul out in a heartbeat. Terrified, the kid swallows hard as Baphomet lets go. Truth is, the demon is furious too. Having no idea, Lucifer ordered others to build their own hells. Even worse, the devil wants all 12 candidates to slaughter each other to see whose domain reigns supreme. Baphomet's absolute rage at this stupid setup is clear. Yum Sung-ji asks if this game of death is purely about being the last one standing. Baphomet scoffs, asking the kid if he seriously thinks he has what it takes to survive. But first, the kid needs to know the exact rules and what went down while he was locked up in that interrogation room. The demon smiles and decides to show him directly. He shoves two glowing fingers right toward the kid's eyes, making him scream in agony. Sadly, a mental download hurts less than explaining. Everything goes pitch black, then a blinding light appears. A shadowy figure takes shape in his mind, and suddenly, the devil Lucifer himself is standing right there. It is so vivid that Yum Sung-ji feels like he is physically in the room. And yeah, I know what you were thinking. A demonic battle royale? Yes, please. Another demon named Lamb steps up to praise Lucifer's thirst for war, but asks a critical question: what are the rules here? Lucifer smiles. He wants these chosen humans to target one another and drag their rivals to their respective hells. Crucially, none of the demons or the humans know what sins are tied to each other's domains. The goal is to manipulate their chosen humans, forcing them to set deadly traps to capture rivals. Lamb summarizes it perfectly. It is a blind game of tag where the last one standing takes everything. Lucifer nods in agreement. This twisted game will prove which human-made hell is truly the ultimate domain, showing off the dark, unique horrors a human mind can cook up. Lamb speaks up again, asking if there are any other restrictions. The King of Hell declares that demons are strictly banned from using their own supernatural powers to directly assist the humans. Any other dirty trick is fair game, provided the humans do the dirty work of trapping each other. Suddenly, the vision shatters, and Yum Sung-ji snaps back to reality, realizing he has zero choice. Even if he decides to play passive, other players will hunt him down. Baphomet nods, admitting that they are both in the exact same boat. Since demons are bound to their humans' hell by a contract, every single demon will be erased from existence along with their human partner, except for the victor. Honestly, though, Yum Sung-ji does not care about Baphomet's fate. If the demon gets dragged down to some other hell, the kid views it as simple karma finally catching up to him. He only has one real worry: asking Baphomet what happens to the sinners currently locked in his custom hell if he gets captured by an enemy. The demon's answer is brutally simple: they will vanish forever. That means there is no easy way out. Yum Sung-ji realizes he must play to win, because he refuses to let those scumbags escape with a peaceful death. Baphomet shivers, realizing this kid is absolutely unhinged. He is not fighting to save his own skin, but to keep tormenting those sinners forever. Eternal agony is the true heart of hell. He cannot let his masterpiece of torment be destroyed. Twisted as it is, Baphomet is thrilled to have such a ruthless human on his side. Maybe ruling a new hell is actually within his reach. The demon extends his hand, officially recognizing the kid as his partner, and they lock deal. But far in the distance, dark eyes are already watching their every move. Another demon, Sadius, and his human partner Hu Min-che stand atop a nearby skyscraper, plotting. The deadly games are finally on. Meanwhile, Yum Sung-ji writes down the critical rules. Rule 1. You win by locking up the enemy creator. Rule 2. Demons can assist, but without their abilities. Rule 3. Any dirty tactic is allowed. And Rule 4. It goes on until only one survivor remains. Unless Lucifer pulls some new rule out of his sleeve, those are the conditions. But that leaves a massive question. How exactly can these demons help? What other secrets are they hiding besides their main powers? Yum Sung-ji asks. Their shared traits are powers directly granted by Lucifer, like opening dimensional portals, conjuring wild hellfire, and commanding low-tier minions. But beyond those standard tricks, every single demon possesses a highly unique, innate ability they were born with. Yum Sung-ji gets curious and demands to know what Baphomet can actually do. The demon smirks and reveals his innate talent is to sense death itself. Ever since his early days, he could sense those near death and guide them straight to hell. Intrigued, the boy asks for details, but a sudden doorbell ring cuts them off. He checks the intercom only to find a mysterious girl standing at his door, claiming she has something to show him. Confused, he lets her in. Trust me, you and I need to see what comes next. All right. You and I are jumping right into the chaos. Out of nowhere, she starts unbuttoning her blouse. A stunned Yum Sung-ji demands to know what she is doing, threatens to call the police, and slams down the intercom. Baphomet pokes his head out as a dark miasma fills the room, the literal essence of death. That woman at the door is not here to play. She is here to take Yum Sung-ji's life, plain and simple. The kid is shocked, but his brain instantly kicks into gear. He is a total shut-in who has never hurt a soul, so a random assassin makes no sense. There is only one logical explanation left. That girl is another hell creator. Hu Min-che pulls a glowing key from her pocket. Yum Sung-ji's panicked reaction was all she needed to trigger her specific sin, the sin of lust. Slipping the key away, her next move is simple: smash the door, invade his home, and drag him straight to hell, but just to be absolutely sure about her target. She gets the green light from her demon, Thaddeus, who gives a silent nod. His tracking skills are top tier. He located a creator incredibly fast, and now that the target is cornered inside, she just needs to breach and clear. Hu Min-che raises a massive hammer and starts smashing the door. Yum Sung-ji is completely stunned by her sheer audacity. This crazy girl is literally trying to cave his door in. He has to find a counterplay fast, because her key is already glowing active. It does not take a genius to put the pieces together. The sin fueling her power is definitely lust. The heavy pounding on the door never stops. Grabbing his own key, he desperately tries to formulate a plan. When he picked up that intercom, he had no idea she was an enemy, leaving him totally unprepared. Could her trick count as the sin of betrayal? Baphomet shuts that down. Her act is way too shallow to trigger anything. To activate his key, the target has to completely abandon their faith. So yeah, a simple trick like that does not count as betrayal, even with bad intentions. The rules of hell are not that easy to bend. Yet, Yum Sung-ji remains surprisingly chill. Baphomet asks if he is hiding a secret trump card, right as another violent hammer strike rattles the door. If she already has an active key and wants to force her way inside, he tells himself, stepping right up to the barrier. He has to play a high-stakes game of chicken and make her believe he can unleash hell the second she breaches. Watch closely here. The kid sits right in front of the door and warns her step inside, and you fall straight to hell. She hesitates, decides he is bluffing, and keeps swinging her hammer. It is exactly as he feared. She is smashing her way in because her hell door conditions are primed. With one final, heavy blow, the metal doorknob finally snaps right off. Yum Sung-ji drops a second warning step inside, and his hell swallows her. Hu Min-che freezes. She definitely did not expect this level of confidence. He is not begging. He is not running. Could he actually be telling the truth? She hesitates, overthinking everything. And just like that, She swallows his bait hook, line, and sinker. He asks if she wants to know why he is so calm, claiming his territory is the hell of invasion. Locking eyes through the freshly smashed peephole, a tense, silent standoff begins. It is a massive bluff, but he has to play the hand he is dealt. Besides, there is absolutely nothing in Lucifer's rulebook that says you cannot lie about your own domain. Baphomet watches him in pure awe. In mere seconds, the kid spun a psychological trap. But Hugh Min-chae is highly intelligent, and she knows there is a massive chance this is all a lie. The odds of a bluff are easily over 90%. But what if she is wrong? What if opening that door is the exact trigger that unleashes Yeom Sung-ji's hell upon her? Picturing her own demise, she decides she is not ready to lose yet. A heavy silence fills the hallway as she desperately weighs her remaining options. Option 1, use her key. Activate her own domain, but risk triggering his trap. Option 2, fall back, but if she retreats now, she completely loses her element of surprise. Yeom Seung-ji would remember this encounter and pinpoint her triggers. In other words, a potential checkmate. Every single path forward carries a massive, lethal risk. What should she do? I know exactly what you are thinking, and yes, Yeom Seung-ji reads her mind completely, listing every single doubt running through her head. He proposes a deal that benefits both of them, a temporary alliance. She scoffs at the suggestion. After all, when this brutal game ends, only one of them gets to survive. An alliance just means delaying the inevitable betrayal. But Yeom Seung-ji keeps pressing, asking if she genuinely thinks she can take down the other 10 players all on her own. That reality check makes Hugh Min-chae hesitate. She definitely cannot use this cheap seduction trick on every other lethal player out there. Even worse, if he teams up with someone else, he could expose her lust trigger to the entire board. Once her secret is out, her sneak attacks become completely useless. Cornered, she asks Thaddeus what her best move is, but even her powerful demon admits he has no idea which path is the right one. Pressing his advantage, Yeom Seung-ji casually drops his phone number. If she wants to team up, she just needs to call. That way, she avoids triggering his imaginary trap. Besides, she just smashed his door down, meaning the police are definitely on their way, so she better run fast. Despite her lingering doubts, Hugh Min-chae pulls out her phone and quickly saves the contact number Yeom Seung-ji dictated to her. Nothing went according to her plan today. These opponents are clearly playing on her same intellectual level. He holds his breath until she finally leaves, instantly dropping his stoic poker face. The death game just started, and he almost got wiped out instantly. Baphomet notes he suspected a demon could track other users, but never expected them to be targeted first. Still, Yeom Seung-ji deserves some serious credit. His lightning-fast reflexes saved their lives. With the immediate threat gone, they begin mapping out their next moves. While Yeom Seung-ji is tweaking his domain settings on his phone, a new message suddenly lights up the screen. Hugh Min-chae officially agrees to a temporary alliance. Staring at the text, he realizes just surviving today is a massive win. If she leaks info about their alliance, she triggers his real domain, the Hell of Betrayal. It is a brilliant play. This kid is playing high-level chess. Meanwhile, over at the police precinct, Detective Park Sang-sik pores over classified files. He is completely locked in, hunting for any trace of other creators like himself. Gargamel asks if he is using his supernatural abilities to investigate. It is a smart move, but with the missing persons list piling up, utilizing his power is way more complicated than it looks. A voice interrupts as his assistant walks into the office, asking if he is finally heading home. The detective questions why the rookie is still here so late, but the kid claims he is just restocking supplies. Opening a drawer to put his bag away, the young officer casually mentions a bizarre report that came in earlier, an attempted home invasion over at Yeom Seung-ji's place. Apparently, some crazy schoolgirl tried to smash her way inside. By the time officers arrived, she was long gone, and the victim was unharmed. Finally, the detective has a real lead. He is positive the girl who targeted Yeom Seung-ji is another Hell creator. Who knew the quiet kid was already in the crosshairs? He orders his rookie to pull the local security footage and identify the female attacker. Along with the security tapes, the detective has one final command. He wants his subordinate to shadow the boy and track his every move throughout the coming week. And that is where we leave things today. While active players analyze each other across the city, the first brutal elimination just happened. An old man grovels before a sharply dressed stranger. You and I are jumping right into a brutal world where even breathing can be a crime. Check this out. The wealthy-looking man standing there is actually Jam's player. When the helpless old man begs him for mercy, claiming he is innocent, the wealthy guy coldly responds that sometimes just being alive is a sin. To him, a useless old man wasting valuable oxygen was a complete insult, something he simply refused to tolerate. Even as the victim begged, the dark gates of hell dragged his soul down. The defeated demon faded away, grumbling that Jam got incredibly lucky this time around. But before the creature could finish, the human stomped his face, calling him completely useless. Jam pleaded with him to stop, reminding him that this pink demon was actually high-ranking. Without showing a hint of fear, the man warned that if the demon hated being stepped on, he had better do his job. The half-eagle demon stared back in absolute disbelief. Suddenly, the guy smiled and said he was just joking, calling them partners. Only 10 players remained. If they could eliminate them all, they could finally build their promised utopia. 3 days had passed since the wild showdown with Fabiana, and Yum Sung-ji had been relaxing like he was on vacation. Baphomet watched him closely, trying to figure out his strategy. Sure, they survived 2 competitors and made an alliance 3 days ago, but they had not done a single thing since. If they wanted to win this death game, should they not be hunting? Yum Sung-ji admitted he understood the frustration, saying he was feeling pretty restless himself. The demon demanded to know why he was so relaxed. The main character explained that in games like this, things get insane toward the end, leaving zero time to rest. Once the final phase starts, they will not even have time to sleep. It is a constant cycle of hunt or be hunted. He knew that if he waited patiently, some impatient player would eventually make a critical mistake. There are always fools who focus on winning minor battles instead of the whole war, so he wanted to lure them into a trap first. But then, his phone rings, and trust me on this, things are about to get incredibly chaotic. It is Hu Min-che calling. She angrily complained that they had been allied for 3 whole days without him calling once. He joked that he was strategically doing absolutely nothing. Letting out a frustrated sigh, she told him that while he was relaxing, a massive incident had already occurred, and he needed to check the stream immediately. She sent over a video link. On screen, a popular streamer named Gagaka was telling his live audience that he was currently playing a secret game. He described it as a brutal survival game where nobody knew the other players' real identities. Because everyone was playing it safe and hiding, the streamer complained that the whole event was becoming incredibly boring. Being a dramatic content creator, he wanted more action, screams, and chases, so he decided to do something insane and reveal his own identity first. He wanted to trigger the chaos, forcing players to either steal his key or target others who showed up. He then invited everyone to his house at midnight, promising to leave his address in the comments. Baphomet and Yom Sung-gi stared at the screen, shocked by his stupidity. The wait was over, and it was time to make their move. This event was a perfect chance to identify rivals and cut down the competition. It was safe to say their short vacation was officially over. Later at a crowded cafe, Yom Sung-ji waited for Hu Min-che. She arrived annoyed, asking if he picked such a busy spot just to stop her from attacking him. He shot back that he had left his own safe zone to meet her, leaving him unable to activate his sin of invasion. Now here is where it gets interesting, so pay close attention. She asked how they should handle the streamer's invitation, knowing other players must have seen the stream too. What should they do next? Yom Sung-ji carefully considered his options, determined not to let her figure out how his sin actually activated. He suggested they go to the location, claiming that even if his power was weak, it would be an excellent opportunity to unmask other players. They agreed to head out as soon as the address dropped in the comments. But before they could make plans, Detective Park Sung-sik suddenly walked in with Gargamon. Yom Sung-ji froze, wondering why he was there, while Hu Min-che turned around to face another rival player. The detective grinned, saying it was amusing to see them casually plotting in public. A wave of pure panic hit the 2 young players, though the officer seemed oddly friendly. Still, they could not help but wonder how long they had been watched, and why he approached them without knowing their powers. Had they triggered his key's condition and sealed their fate? Park Sung-sik calmly drank the rest of Yom Sung-ji's coffee, warning them to abandon whatever plans they were currently making. He made it clear that if they kept going, he would send them straight to hell. Meanwhile, Gagaka was checking his video's reach. The streamer was ready to post his address. His demon, Jin Jiang, asked if he was absolutely sure about this dangerous plan. The boy smiled excitedly, confirming everything was ready and the hidden cameras were in place. Besides, his demon's abilities were not very useful for anything else. Anyway, with that, the first massive event of this death game was set, and Gagaka's trap was fully prepared. Back at the cafe, things were tense. Yum Sung-ji realized his key was glowing, meaning someone close had committed a sin. But how? He had been so careful. He remembered that at the police station, his key had not reacted. Could it be that the key was actually reacting to Hu Min-che instead? He stared at her as a wild theory formed in his mind. He tried to grab her attention, but the detective interrupted before he could speak. Yum Sung-ji stood up anyway. The officer issued a final warning, but the boy claimed the detective was bluffing. If his theory was right, The cop had forced someone to sin just to corner them. Since neither he nor Hu Min-che had broken any rules, the detective had to be using a clever bluff. That explained why the key was active here. Plus, the cop had not checked his own key even once since arriving. He spotted a highly anxious customer nearby, noticing a call bell on the table that looked brand new. Yam Sung-ji walked over and asked if the cop had threatened him. Realizing they had been completely set up, Hu Min-che stood up in a rage, while our protagonist confirmed his theory. She screamed, demanding to know how he dared to treat them like that. The terrified civilian nodded to the cop and quickly ran out of the cafe. Park Sung-sik just smiled. The cop stood up, claiming it was all just a test. Trust me, you and I are going to want to see what he plots next. All right, you and I are jumping right into a messy alliance where trust is basically zero, because Sung-ji is still highly suspicious of this detective guy. But the detective acts totally relaxed, calmly inviting the two young creators to sit back down and listen to his offer. He even casually takes a sip of Min-che's coffee, acting like they are all best buddies having a normal chat. Min-che whispers to the nerd, questioning if they should actually waste their precious time listening to this cop when they are on a tight schedule. But Sung-ji has a good reason to stay put. This guy is a detective, meaning he has access to police databases and can track down hell creators like them incredibly easily. Plus, he could use his legal authority to lock them up at any moment. Basically, these two only have their supernatural cards to play, while the detective holds the law and his demon. So, teaming up with him is actually a smart move. With an epic clash coming up tonight, having another strategic mind on their side is a massive advantage. Sung-ji makes his counter-offer, agreeing to team up only if the cop reveals his core sin. But obviously, a player's secret sin is way too valuable to just hand over like that. Min-che agrees that a blind alliance is a terrible idea, but the detective counters. Instead of confessing his sin, he offers them some incredibly juicy intel that they cannot refuse. This definitely gets their attention. He asks if their hell-sent victims are still in the single digits, because get this, he has already sent 117 people straight to hell. This shocking news makes both of them jump, accidentally causing a scene in the quiet cafe. Embarrassed, they quickly apologize to the annoyed customers around them. Now watch this, because he knows how it works. By sending so many people away, he figured out the mechanics of key activation like the exact range, the duration, and even how to banish multiple targets at once. The more he hunts, the more broken his knowledge becomes. His deal is simple. He shares this crucial system data, and they fight alongside him in tonight's massive battle. Needing every edge they can get, they accept the proposal and head out. Afterward, Gargamon pops up, asking if Sang-sik gave away way too much precious info just to secure an alliance with these two rookies. But the cop tells his demon to relax. He actually swapped some key numbers in that notebook. If those kids try to backstab him, he can easily crush them both. Later that night, Sung-ji and Min-che meet up in a city park. There are only 3 hours and 20 minutes left before the location is officially revealed. While waiting, they decide to coordinate their strategy. Sung-ji turns to Min-che, wanting to get some clear answers about what her key's ability actually does. If they can pinpoint Gagaku's spot early, they'll have a massive head start on the others. Min-che grabs a twig and starts sketching out a diagram on the dirt. She explains that her demon can locate the closest active demon to her position, meaning she can only sniff out other players if they step into her specific radar range. That is how she tracked down Sung-ji in the first place. He asked about her cooldown, and she reveals she can only use it for 5 minutes every 12 hours. Knowing he stayed at home, she probably kept activating her radar twice a day while moving through the city streets. Because of their brutal initial fight, she was probably too terrified to approach any other players she detected. Sung-ji immediately realizes that there are other targets she found but kept a complete secret. Let's pause here, because this is where she decides to pay him back for saving her life earlier. Taking a deep breath, she reveals that her hunt actually ended up producing 2 specific results. One target was spotted right by the airport's immigration gate, and the other was inside a high-level meeting room at the massive QS Corporation. So, they're likely dealing with a wealthy foreigner and a corporate VIP. Sadly, neither of them looked into a mirror during her 5-minute window, so she has absolutely no idea what they look like. She quickly assures him she didn't hide this because of trust issues. She genuinely just forgot to mention it. She definitely wants to keep their alliance intact. To build up some mutual trust, Sung-ji decides to reveal his own hand. His demon, Baphomet, possesses the terrifying ability to track the very essence of death. It acts like a danger radar, warning him whenever someone nearby harbors murderous intent. Min-che is impressed, noting it is a broken ability, especially when paired with his specific key's sin. With 3 hours left and a better understanding of each other's powers, they decide to split up and rest up for the coming war. She agrees, and Sung-gi promises to send photos of the cop's notebook so she can analyze it as well. He offers her a high five, telling her to stay alive. After all, he knows she wouldn't want the sinners trapped in her personal hell to get off with an easy death. That dark reminder triggers a memory of why her key is themed around lust. We see a flashback of a phone recording on a desk, where a younger Min-chae asks her boyfriend why the camera is running. He brushes it off as a thrilling thrill, begging her to just trust him this once. But the very next day at school, creepy guys are suddenly hunting her down in the halls. Her locker is covered in disgusting, hateful slurs. The horrible truth is instantly obvious. In the present, a man nervously rubs his hands together. Her pathetic ex stands before her, crying and begging for forgiveness. But it's too late. The damage was done, and her life was ruined. Snapping back to the present, she completely agrees with Sung-ji's brutal mindset. She absolutely won't let her targets escape their eternal torment so easily. With a solid high five, the two allies vow to survive this deadly game until the very end. Back home, Sung-ji is busy taking notes from the detective's journal when Baphomet suddenly materializes in his room, whining and begging his master to stop making him walk because his feet are killing him. Since he is only used to teleporting through portals, walking is torture for him. But Sung-ji tells the lazy demon to shut up because other players can see demons too, and they cannot risk getting spotted. The demon points out that for a guy who acts so cautious, he is putting way too much trust in Min-chae. Sung-ji shrugs it off, admitting he easily lied to her about his true sin anyway. Besides, he absolutely needs her radar power for the chaos ahead. Tonight is a numbers game, and you can bet other players are teaming up too. Across the city, 3 terrifying demons are seen walking the streets, proving Sung-ji's theory completely right. These are Lamb, Bamfire, and Gordon Kilius. But their alliance is far different and much more toxic than our main squad's team. A ruthless player named Nong Han is the undisputed boss of this trio, treating his 2 partners like nothing more than garbage subordinates. He constantly refreshes his phone, waiting for the upload. The moment the address pops up, Nong Han tosses a car key to his lackey, demanding he drive them to the target location immediately. He then orders the terrified, kneeling girl that she is going to be their human shield and enter the dangerous zone first. When she tries to protest, he coldly flashes his glowing key, reminding her that she is completely useless and her very life belongs to him. She is visibly shaking from the threat. It is absolutely sickening to be forced to take orders from a monster like him. And that's where we leave them, entering a nightmare with zero trust. Stick around, because you and I are going to see how this crazy night unfolds next time. Alright, you and I are diving right into the middle of this deadly game as the players head to Gagak's location. The night looks peaceful enough, but the quiet streets are about to turn into a total war zone. Over by a dark parking lot, Yom Sung-ji's squad huddles up. They're going over the secret notes left behind by the detective. Turns out, they can only drag 5 targets into hell at once. And once the gate shuts, there's a strict 1-minute cooldown before they can open it again. Plus, the target must be within 10 meters of the gate's center to get pulled in. Even if you can see them, range is everything. But then, Min-chae realizes he forgot one massive detail. Even if the key flags someone, the creator must personally acknowledge their sins. No exceptions. Basically, both conditions have to be met for the portal to actually work. The target has to be guilty, and the creator must know it. With the rules down, their plan is simple. Step 1, spot the rival players. Step 2, gather dirt on their sins. And Step 3, all of them have to survive. No matter how tempting it is to take people out, staying alive is priority number 1. Min-chae questions if they should play it completely safe, but Park Sang-sik explains there is no direct reward for dragging rivals to hell. It is simply not worth the risk. But make no mistake, if a perfect opening appears, they will take it. He passes walkie-talkies to the younger pair so they can stay connected and warn each other the second they spot another player. Meanwhile, a sleek car pulls up outside a luxury hotel. Yoon Eung-han peers through binoculars, scanning the area. His crew is nervous. Do they really have to go first? They have no clue where an attack might strike from. It makes way more sense to let the other players make the first move and take the heat. But their boss is already getting sick of the whining. They are here to wipe out the competition, plain and simple. And as his lackeys already know, Eung-han has already sent a player packing. The big secret he learned, defeating another creator actually grants you a powerful bonus ability. The 2 underlings stare at him in total shock. If that is true, scoring an extra skill right off the bat is a massive advantage. Now pay attention here, because this is where things get really interesting. The lackeys realize if they take out another player, they can finally break free from Eung-han, or at least match his godlike power. And just like that, they walk straight into his trap like total idiots. Honestly, if a reward like that actually existed, the game master would have said something. He flashes back to his last battle. The moment the demon vanished, he asked Lamb if there was any kind of bonus. Lamb confirmed there were no new rules, and he did not feel any different. So, there is absolutely no reason to get their hands dirty. They just need a new strategy, and luckily, it is incredibly simple. He will use his two lackeys as pure bait to draw out the new player. That way, he can sit back and learn exactly what kind of hell his opponent controls. With that info, he can enslave the new player and repeat the cycle. Once the game ends, he will just kill his last puppet to claim total victory. He coughs to hide his wicked smirk, then plays the nice guy, claiming he is only doing this to make his team stronger. Now, they just need to pin on their cameras and head out to fight. Meanwhile, Gagaku is busy monitoring his hidden security cameras. Suddenly, two dark shadows flicker outside his window. It swings open and a woman slips inside, mockingly asking if he expected her to ring the front doorbell. She clearly used a climbing rope to scale the building. And look, her key is glowing, meaning they are cleared for an immediate attack. And Yoonhei raises her key high, demanding the gates of the Hell of Vanity to open. Swarms of bats materialize around her. It is finally time for this brat to face his judgment. A massive bat hovers as she turns the key, opening the dark portal. Ghastly hands reach out and grab Gagaku, but suddenly they retreat, leaving both the girl and her demon completely stunned. How is this possible? It makes zero sense for the key to fail. Suddenly, a terrifying, deep voice echoes from their target, and Eunhei can barely believe her own eyes. They targeted the wrong guy entirely. As the mask is pulled off, a completely different demon reveals itself. Before they can even process this sheer insanity, Gagaku's Hell of Invasion instantly activates. Thick green smoke floods the room, and bound tightly by ropes, both the girl and her demoness are dragged straight into Gagaku's terrifying domain. Let's pause here, because this flashback hits different. Everything goes dark, and a dance studio countdown begins. We see Carla staring at her phone, wondering if she will be a trainee forever. Suddenly, a loud commotion erupts across the room. A manager steps up and makes the big announcement the girl standing next to him, Yule, is finally debuting. Yoonhei is absolutely devastated, demanding to know why Yule gets to debut ahead of everyone who trained longer. He just shrugs is a decision from the top brass, and his hands are tied. He tells her to stop crying and go celebrate with the other girls. Crushed and broken, she sits alone until someone suddenly approaches her, offering a tissue. It is Yule. Yoonhei thinks she is showing some actual compassion, but Yule just smirks and tells her to try harder next time. After all, she has been a trainee for 7 long years. She coldly suggests Eunhei lacks real talent and should probably give up her idle dreams since she is getting way too old anyway. Yule reveals her true, snake-like nature in that very moment. Later, in a rainy convenience store, Yoonhei drinks away her pain. She watches her rivals debut on TV, knowing the sickening truth Yule only got the spot by sleeping with the company rep. That very night, a strange light floods her bedroom, and a demonic woman appears out of thin air. She offers a tempting deal, and Eunhei is too desperate to say no. But when she finally tracks down her target and tries to drag him to hell, she fails completely. Sure, he is a top executive, but that does not make him a saint. He mocks her efforts, calling them a pathetic joke, and claims compassion is for the weak. He only moves when there is cold, hard proof. As she is dragged away, she realizes she was foolish to think she could survive by relying on a monster like him. With the conditions met, the Hell Gate slams shut, and Yoonhei is officially eliminated. With her gone, her contract demoness dissolves into nothing. Gagaga suddenly appears, absolutely thrilled with how easily they won. It turns out their plan to abuse Jin Zhang's unique power was a huge success. Jin Zhang is pleased, noting his power is usually only used for silly party tricks to entertain other demons. Gagaga is riding high on this victory and cannot wait to pull it off again. Jin Zhang slides his mask back on, and the duo prepares to hunt down their next victim. That ominous green glow of the portal flashes through the window. Yum Sung-ji immediately grabs his radio to warn his team, knowing for a fact that another player just opened their gate. At least one player has been eliminated. Instantly, Sung-ji begins mapping out a plan. Based on the secret files, whoever opened that gate is now locked out by a strict 1-minute cooldown before they can use it again. Should he make his move right now? Can he realistically slip in and out within 60 seconds without getting caught? But before he can think, a hand grips his shoulder. Is it an enemy? Trust me, you and I are going to want to see what happens next. Alright, you and I are jumping right back into the action where the detective stops our main character from rushing in. Doing anything in 60 seconds without a plan is basically suicide. So, what is the play? Park Se-byuk says it is simple. he will just knock and ask if everyone is okay because of a scream he heard. Sang-ji wants to argue, but then the genius hits him. By using a noise complaint as his official cover, the detective can force his way inside. After all, whoever just won the last battle is going to hesitate before sending a cop straight to hell. Do that, and a swarm of police will lock down the building and make them prime suspects. So, Sang-ji and Heo Min-chae need to keep other players out while the detective handles whoever is waiting for them on the inside. With that, he marches straight toward the building. This detective does not just have insane guts, he has the brains to back it up. They play the waiting game specifically for a fight to break out so they could hijack it. But the sheer tension is eating Sang-ji alive. Can he actually banish this guy before getting caught himself? Just as he thought, the first camera goes dark. The girl is gone, but now he knows the opponent's health theme. He tosses the tablet. It is time to make a move. The elevator dings on the 7th floor. Now, pay close attention, because the second the detective steps out, he is caught on the streamer's camera. Is this an easy target? Definitely not a regular resident. Park Se-byuk approaches and rings the bell. The streamer is grinning after all. The door is unlocked. Come on in, buddy. He ducks back into the closet, telling his demon to play its part. Outside, Se-byuk keeps pounding, announcing he is a detective investigating a disturbance. Guaka realizes all the loud noises and flashing lights from earlier must have tipped someone off. This is a massive problem, but this is exactly the panic the detective wanted to trigger. If he banishes a cop, he gets arrested. If he opens the door, it buys time for rivals. He needs to wrap this up as fast as possible. He walks to the door, asking what this report is about. Se-byuk plays it cool, just a minor noise complaint about a woman screaming nearby. He asks if they can talk for a quick second. Down below, Sang-ji watches anxiously, wondering how on earth he is going to block other players from entering. Way easier said than done, but he has to make it work to keep the plan alive. He radios Heo Min-chae, asking if she has spotted any suspicious activity around the perimeter yet. She reports all quiet on her end and asks about the detective. Sang-gi tells her he is already upstairs, so they must lock down the entrance right now. Min-chae promises to stay sharp, prompting him to ask if she has used her ability today. She replies that she had no reason to, since she was hanging out with him all day. He tells her to activate it right now to test a theory. What if her tracking power does not lock onto the closest target, but the closest person currently in motion? If a new player gets close, her target vision should instantly shift. Min-chae's mind is blown. She never thought of using her power like that. Usually, there was never more than one player around for her target to swap within those 5 minutes. But if his theory works, they can easily weed out dangerous players from ordinary citizens trying to enter the apartment. Since this building is not just apartments, an enemy player could easily sneak inside disguised as a delivery guy or a neighbor. If this works, they will spot the enemy first and set up a brutal ambush. She grabs her radio, climbs down from the ledge, and immediately calls out to Se-dias. Time to move. The moment her power triggers, she sees Sang-ji's hand. But then, just like he predicted, her mystical vision suddenly starts to warp. She warns Sang-ji that the two guys approaching the entrance are definitely players. He tenses up, asking if it is really both of them. Her vision keeps flickering between them, confirming they both are. Now, you and I can see the massive problem Sang-ji has. Dealing with one guy is easy, but how do you trick two people into committing the absolute sin of betrayal at the same time? Even if he takes down one, the other will instantly crush him. He has to keep his cool right now. They have no idea he is a hell creator, meaning the element of surprise is still his. The second he steps out, they start debating if he is a player. They want to avoid dragging civilians into this. Sang-ji wonders if he should just pretend to be a resident, knowing they still have Min-chae if things go south. Looking back at his life, running away was always the easy escape, but he is finally sick and tired of constantly running from his problems. He clenches his fist. He took the key to hell to punish the wicked, yet here he is, thinking of running again. Standing his ground as they draw near, he finally makes his choice. He raises his hand, blocking their path, and warns them not to enter. They freeze, totally confused. Okay, but now what? His game plan? Keep talking so they cannot think. It is a high-stakes chess match. Han wonders if this kid is Guaga's secret ally, but dismisses it because the streamer's hell is purely solo invasion. There is no logic in protecting him. Maybe he belongs to a completely different enemy faction, but even that theory does not add up. His weird actions do not match a typical player. But if he is a normal civilian, why block them? Then, Sang-ji claims they are running a building sweep after reports of screaming on the 7th floor. Han is floored. He completely overlooked neighbor complaints. The puzzle pieces fit. Someone must have heard An Eunhae scream before she got dragged to hell. Now the cops are securing the block, which leaves them with two options. Yoon Eung-han glares at Sang-gi with deep suspicion. The kid looks nothing like a cop. He is way too scrawny, and that sweat dripping down his face is super sketchy. But before suspicion turns into a trap, Sang-gi doubles down on his bluff. To sell a lie, you must completely believe it. The businessman tries to interrogate him, but Sang-gi instantly pulls out his radio, reporting the civilian encounter to his senior upstairs. Upstairs, the detective suddenly hears Sang-gi over the radio, warning him about two residents trying to head up. He instantly gets the signal this is a high-risk situation, and they need to make a quick exit. He radios back that he is heading down, claiming the noise was just some kid live streaming a scary game. Crisis averted. The two rivals are stunned to hear the radio confirmation. This kid really knows how to think under pressure. Absolute checkmate. They are completely left in the dust. He tells them the scene will be cleared shortly, politely asking them to wait outside. The detective steps out of the elevator, apologizing to the residents for the minor delay. He flashes his badge one last time and tells them they are good to go. Yoon Eung-han is shaken, but he still knows Guaka's secrets and plans his next move. Trust me, you and I are about to see one hell of a clash very soon. Alright, you and I are diving right back into the chaos as our duo enters the elevator. The moment they step out, Park Sang-sik demands to know how those two figured out they were creators. Yum Sung-ji explains it was all thanks to Human Che's special power, confirming those two are definitely enemies. When asked about the streamer, the old man sighs, admitting he hasn't sent Gagaka to hell just yet. Still, the young duo managed to track down two more players. That makes 7 identified targets in total, including the poor girl who got sucked into that crazy YouTuber's version of absolute hell. Talk about a massive win for just a single night of work. Now, the real game begins. This is the very first time so many powerful players are finally standing face to face. Their squad successfully snagged the intel they needed. Meanwhile, a doorbell rings. It is Yoon Eung-han, and he has got a very tempting offer for the streamer. This wealthy businessman straight up demands Gagaga become his obedient dog. The kid thinks he is completely insane, but Nong-han coldly points out the guy Gaga killed was his pawn, meaning his invasion hell is useless right now. A smug, victorious grin spreads across his face, leaving the young streamer totally speechless inside. If that is true, what happens if the streamer just hides inside forever? The businessman has a simple, brutal answer. He will put guards on him 24/7 and drag him down the second he steps outside. Even if the kid locks himself in, how long can his supplies really last? Without ordering food delivery, he will survive maybe 2 months, 4, at the absolute most. The brat basically signed his own prison sentence, but instead of giving in, Gagaga stubbornly locks his doors. Outside, the wealthy lunatic literally shivers with pure excitement. Now, you are going to want to see this play out. The rich madman leaves, eager to slowly torture him. Inside, Gagaga brainstorms with his demon, though the beast remains skeptical, asking if stalling like this actually solves their problems. Gagaga just shrugs, hoping that while they buy time, some other player will drag that wealthy psycho straight to hell. They just need to survive a bit longer. But that plan fails in under a week. His food deliveries arrive stuffed with garbage, and after calling the cops 3 times, they assume it is a prank. Next, his electricity gets cut completely, and the building's water supply turns toxic. Constant paranoia of a break-in triggers severe insomnia. Just as the desire to escape becomes unbearable, a card slides under his door. It says, "Get in touch if you have given up." With that, the streamer admits defeat. On a bright, sunny day, inside the elite headquarters of QS Corporation, Yu Nong-han sits waiting. The kid lasted longer than expected, but now, he is officially his obedient little dog. Cut to a dirty, abandoned factory in Korea. A terrified man screams for help, running for his life as a monstrous demon and its player hunt him down. A killer wearing a horror mask corners the victim, reminding him he was given 2 simple choices: go straight to hell or die right here. He pulls a glowing key from his pocket, sending the victim into a complete panic. It is a lose-lose situation. The key flares to life, meaning the condition is met. Since the victim refused to choose, this crazy creator decides for him. It is time to go to hell, he says, with a playful wink. A grotesque portal rips open, throwing out giant tentacles that wrap around the screaming man and swallow him whole. The psycho player then happily snuggles up to his massive demon. Well, someone clearly has a twisted taste in romance. The Black Knight demon enjoys these weird hobbies, but warns that if they do not hunt other players soon, there will be consequences. The player agrees, promising to stop targeting normal humans and focus on hunting other hell creators. 10 days have passed since his hunt began, and 5 since they ran into Gagaka. Meanwhile, Yam Sung-ji begins intense training to prepare himself for the brutal war ahead, strictly managing his diet and fixing his chaotic sleep schedule. He and the detective dig into the two mysterious guys from that night, finally uncovering some major dirt. One is Yunong Han, a director at QS Corporation, a certified genius who reached the top at just 31. Now, here's the part you and I need to watch carefully. The second guy is a total mystery, but he is clearly a brilliant master strategist, making him incredibly dangerous. If they do not take this guy out soon, he will wipe out their entire squad. The detective nods, fully agreeing with Sung-ji's sharp analysis. The guy has elite social status and endless mountains of cash. Combine that with genius-level intellect, and our heroes are in absolute deep trouble. The second target is Jeong Chul, an ordinary architect with a clean record. He is likely being blackmailed by Nong Han, which explains how they teamed up in the first place. During their last encounter, the architect refused to say a single word willingly, clearly terrified of speaking unless he absolutely had to. That tiny detail might be their secret weapon to shatter this alliance. Sung-ji thanks the detective for the massive lead and prepares to head out. Park Sang-sik notices the kid has truly matured over this journey. Sung-ji smiles, thanking him and admitting his mental state is finally getting better. Before, he had no idea how to go on once his revenge was complete, but now, that worry is gone. Back home, Sung-ji admits he feels totally relieved, but Baphomet questions this piece. Shouldn't they be out there actively hunting opponents? Sung-ji calmly replies that battles are won or lost long before the actual fighting even starts. This war is purely a game of information, knowing everything about your enemy while keeping your own cards completely hidden. Charging in blind is suicide when losing means eternal damnation in hell. It is better to quietly prepare for the inevitable storm. Baphomet then asks about Human Che. Sung-ji says she is tracking their targets twice a day. Suddenly, his phone buzzes. Before he can speak, she yells that she just spotted an active player. He asks, where? And she points to the busy streets of Myeongdong. She wants to call the detective, believing this is the perfect golden opportunity to strike. Sung-ji warns the risk is way too high, urging her to just gather basic details. But in a packed commercial district, there is absolutely nowhere for the target to hide. Plus, she is tailing him safely. Since the guy has no clue she is a player, it is a perfect surprise attack. Sung-ji has no comeback to that logic. Still, the danger is off the charts since they know nothing about this mystery player. But before he can even argue, she abruptly hangs up the phone. Human Che is sick of running and hiding. To her, taking them out early is just easier. Suddenly, her target slips into a dark, empty side alley. He is definitely about to trigger the sin of lust, she thinks. Slipping her key into her bag just in case, she rounds the corner and freezes in absolute shock. Her target is just standing there. As he turns around, revealing a heavily scarred face, we meet Ji Hyun in Hwan. He knew she was tailing him all along, yet her key of lust refuses to activate. Lunging like a wild beast, he catches her off guard. Later, she wakes up groggy in a dark, empty factory. A brutal headache throbs. She got blindsided by that psycho, likely drugged and dragged here. You and I will have to wait and see if she survives. All right, you and I are diving into a rescue mission where every second counts. She had only herself to blame. Yeon Seung-ji was right, and now she just had to stay calm and plan her next move. Everything was gone, her key, phone, and wallet. Even without a way to call her team, escaping this place seemed impossible. She was locked behind solid concrete walls and a heavy iron door. Breaking out would be tough, but at least she still had Sadius by her side. She knew they were in deep trouble because of her mistake, but giving up was not an option. They would find a way out. Sadius began to cry, but she forced herself to stay positive. Even if she couldn't trust those two completely, she knew they would come to save her. They had survived together before, and her tracking skills were crucial for planning their next moves. Slowly, Sadius began to believe her words, and the panic started to fade. Clutching a sharp chunk of concrete, she vowed to hold on. Help was coming. She just had to stay alive. Meanwhile, Park Sang-sik was totally right. The second Yeon Sung-ji lost contact with her, he dialed the detective. He alerted him about the missing girl. She might have been dragged into another player's personal hell, or maybe she was just kidnapped. Park Sang-sik let out a heavy sigh. Kids these days were nothing but trouble, and if his secret identity got leaked because of this, he was done for. But they needed her tracking powers, so both men prepared to hunt her down. Baphomet was absolutely hyped. Finally, some real action. This time, the demon was dead, certain they were going to crush it. But the big question remained, could Human Chi survive long enough? Tightening his grip around her neck, John and Hans sneered that she was surprisingly tough for a girl, mocking her that giving up early would have spared her all this pain. Turns out, his knockout drug barely worked on her. She spat insults, calling him a psychopath and a lunatic, but to a creep like him, those were the ultimate compliments. At the same time, Sadius and Black Knight clashed violently. But this survival game was strictly for humans, and Black Knight's player had already won. With a brutal toss, he sent Sadius flying. Lucifer's laws banned demons from using powers outside their natural-born traits. Her companion tried to argue to buy her some time, but it was totally useless. John and Han was already moving to the next phase. He helped her up by the shirt, binding her limbs tight. Now, pay attention here, because even in this nightmare, she didn't break. As he leaned in to hear her whisper, she saw her only shot. She shrieked directly into his ear, sinking her teeth deep to stun him. He flinched in agony, and she clamped down harder. But then the unthinkable happened. He grabbed a blade and sliced off his own ear. If Hugh Minchie wanted it that bad, she could keep it. He also knew her friends were coming. He spotted her tracking him on her phone earlier. As blood dripped onto the cold floor, his sick game became clear. He hadn't killed her yet because she wasn't just a toy to him, she was the perfect bait to lure her team. Hearing that, her hope dissolved into pure dread. The thought of leading her friends straight into a trap terrified her. The killer began to hum, declaring everything was set. All he needed was the main course. Meanwhile, Yam Sung-ji was racing toward the coordinates Hugh Min-chi had shared before her capture. Finding her in this massive city after so much time seemed almost impossible, but our guy had an ace up his sleeve. He ordered Baphomet to activate his signature death scent ability. Grinning, the demon complied, releasing a thick, swirling cloud of dark smoke directly toward him. Gradually, Yam Sung-ji's vision adjusted to the dark fog. The path glowing with the deadliest aura was the exact route leading straight to Hu Min-che. If his theory held up, the thicker the smoke got, the closer he was to her. This makeshift tracking system was actually working. Even Baphomet watched him with a new level of respect. Mortals never cease to amaze demons. In mere minutes, he had repurposed an innate power of death into a highly efficient tracking tool. It was absolutely brilliant. Yong Sung-ji pushed forward, and just as dusk settled, he located the exact hideout. He immediately whipped out his phone and pinged the coordinates directly to the detective. Next challenge, finding a way inside. Meanwhile, a cart is rolled toward Hu Min-che. She opens her eyes to a horrifying display of hammers, saws, and heavy construction tools. If this creep was mimicking some slasher movie villain, she had only one card to play. She couldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing her fear, so she kept playing dead. Right on cue, he tries to rouse her, but she stays completely limp. John and Han hated playing with an unresponsive toy, but his impatience was rapidly growing. Her friends were taking way too long, and honestly, you and I both know this guy is too impatient to wait. Snatching her hair, he sneers that he knows she's awake, ready to begin the torture. She squeezes her eyes shut, bracing for pain, but then a sudden noise echoes from outside. Police sirens are heading straight for the building. Black Knight asks if he left a trail, but the human responds that there is nothing to worry about. He picked him precisely because he does his job right, so there's zero doubt. He figures another player must have spotted them and tipped off the cops. Or maybe one of the current players is an active officer. Either way, those are the only options. No need to panic, they just need to unleash Black Knight's signature skill. John and Han triggers the skill. Outside, police cruisers slide to a halt, officers ready to breach. It seems their mysterious informant opted to stay hidden out of concern for his own skin. Soon-gai was always cautious and kept his head down. Locating the factory was his part. Now, it was time for the heavy-duty professionals to take over. Inside the abandoned factory lay a bizarre, labyrinthine structure resembling a haunted attraction. Every single room and corridor had to be thoroughly cleared. The report said a hostage was dragged inside, and saving her before she died was priority number one. But as one officer walks through the darkness, why is Baphomet's dark energy suddenly spiking? Stepping through those pitch-black, windowless halls is pure nightmare fuel. A dark shadow flickers and vanishes. Suddenly, giant claws emerge from the dark, ending his life in classic slasher fashion. Black Knight makes his first strike, and John and Han is absolutely ecstatic to feel the kill with his own hands, but the demon commands him to keep his focus. This armor eats away at his lifespan. Stay suited up too long, and they'll forfeit the whole game. But the human only gets more hyped, eager to hunt down the remaining cops. The detective moves cautiously through the shadows. This labyrinth feels entirely wrong. As much as he wants to locate the girl immediately, his gut screams that this is a total trap. He keys his radio, ordering everyone to pull back. The layout is too complex, and they need heavy backup right now. but his receiver stays dead silent. Park Sang-sik starts to sweat at the silence. Something is closing in fast. He can feel the heavy weight of death creeping closer by the second. Like a seasoned veteran, he steels himself for a fight. Suddenly, the monstrous armor lunges from his flank. He barely spots it and rolls clear, making his opponent grin with excitement. He fires his weapon, but the bullets bounce off without a scratch. What is this thing? A man? A beast? Confused but focused, he narrowly dodges another lethal swing. Desperate for answers, he demands to know what they are up against. His own partner reveals it is the legendary demon, Black Knight. The detective fires back, trying to make sense of the chaos. Weren't active demons banned from attacking humans directly? Well, Gargamon tells him to look closer at that armor. Yes, there's a human pilot hiding inside. Trust me, you and I are about to watch these cheaters exploit every single loophole in the rules to survive. You and I are about to watch a desperate detective drop his weapon and fight to survive. Meanwhile, his crazy opponent is loving every second. Outside, Yeom Seung-ji starts panicking over the weird noises coming from inside. Suddenly, boom, the detective comes crashing through the side door. This demon-human hybrid power is way too much for him. Watching from the shadows, the young man freezes in pure shock as the armored monster slowly closes in. The monster senses a spectator, demanding they show themselves. If not, he will open the portals and swallow the detective whole. Hearing this, Seung-ji spots a tiny sliver of hope. Meanwhile, Sang-sik smiles, flashing back to his father wearing a proud police uniform. As a boy, he sat glued to TV news about heroic arrests. Suddenly, smack. His mom hits him with a spoon, asking if he is obsessed. But the kid was just inspired. Every evening, his dad would walk through the door carrying delicious treats for the brothers. He would share the wildest cases from the job. But one dark day, his dad did not come home. His colleagues did instead. His dad was cornered while investigating a dangerous syndicate. The man who survived stabs and seemed invincible was brutally beaten to death by a massive mob. There were so many attackers that the real killer could never be singled out. Worst of all, the media hushed up his death just to keep public trust in the police force high. Staring in disbelief, he saw how crooked the world was. He smashed the remote, swearing to become a detective and avenge his father. Pay attention here, we both know that evil often wins. Legal loopholes and dirty backroom deals mean the supposed good guys can smell worse than criminals. Sang-sik did not just want revenge. He wanted to carry his father's torch and crush this corruption. Someone had to clean up the streets. He worked 100% for the week, until one day, a supernatural power showed up, giving him the ultimate tool for vigilante justice. Flash forward to now, and our detective is getting completely pulverized. And Hwan is absolutely loving his raw power, while Sang-sik barely stands, refusing to back down. He cannot die here. Too many bad guys still need punishing. He grabs the key to unleash hell, but his hand is pinned down. If you cannot turn the key, you cannot open the gate. He struggles to twist it, but gets violently knocked out cold. The key slips away, and In Hwan kicks it deep into the shadows. Gargamon cannot step in, but even he calls out this unfair beatdown. The brute just laughs. What did he expect? No matter what clever tactics humans use, their weak society simply cannot protect them. Nothing beats the thrill of being the ultimate predator, dominating and devouring everything. No matter how clever a rabbit is, it can never outrun a hungry leopard. He raises his fist for the kill when a sudden distraction stops him. He glares at Seung-ji, wondering why another little rabbit is stepping up. Sang-sik looks up, deeply grateful for the backup. The psycho villain is amused by all these random people popping up. Meanwhile, our young hero tries to act tough, but his legs are shaking like crazy. The detective prays there is a plan, because otherwise, they are dead meat. The giant drops his prey, shifting his focus to the new target. Seung-ji prepares himself. To beat this brainless monster, he has to attack his massive ego. It works. He puts on a fearless face and dares the beast to come get some. The brute charges right at him. Just as the blow is about to land, Seung-ji commands Baphomet to activate the scent of death at minimum power. You and I both know what happens next. He waits until the absolute last millisecond, smoothly dodging a deadly strike that even the trained detective could not avoid. He smirks, confident in his victory. Ever since hearing about Baphomet's power, he knew some basic logic could turn it into an absolute cheat code. He can literally predict the enemy's next move and see the exact path to survival. Since it is just a physical punch, dodging is child's play. By knowing exactly when he is 100% dead, he can dodge with pinpoint accuracy. Slowly, In Hwan grows incredibly frustrated that he cannot hit this kid. Inside his head, the Black Knight warns him that his life force is draining fast. He must end this now. Meanwhile, Sung-ji silently thanks his intense morning cardio. His stamina is top tier. He can keep this speed up all day, dodging effortlessly to make the monster waste energy while completely breaking his mind. His reflexes are sharper than ever. He hops back, but Baphomet warns him they are running out of time. They must force the brute into committing a betrayal. But Seung-ji rejects the idea. He is not fighting alone. While he acts as bait, the detective is slowly crawling toward that discarded key. If he grabs it, they win. It is a brilliant plan, but Baphomet wonders what happens if the monster spots him again. Right on cue, the giant suddenly wonders why this annoying kid is just running circles around him. He spins around, catching Sang sick with his hand inches away from the key. Rage explodes within him. How dare these weaklings play him like a fool? He charges at the detective, who uses every ounce of strength left to reach that key. The detective locks his fingers around the key. Time to banish this monster. He turns it, the portal roars open, and heavy chains erupt to drag John In Huan straight to hell. But wait, he claws into the concrete, shocking everyone. The psycho admits he belongs in hell, but claims there is still too much chaos he wants to witness in this world first. Deep in the gritty red light district, a young boy was born and forced to survive. Growing up, there was pure hell. He watches a stunning woman smoking when a man named Inguk approaches. Out of nowhere, he violently slaps her for daring to call his name. This toxic, violent upbringing twisted his mind, making him find sick pleasure in torturing rats, before eventually moving on to humans. Suddenly, Sung-ji flies in with a brutal dropkick, completely ignoring the villain's tragic sob story. The impact breaks John In Huan's grip, sending him screaming straight down into the underworld. Just like that, the crazy battle is won. Now that the adrenaline is fading, the detective finally feels his agonizing injuries. Seung-ji walks over and offers a hand, reminding him they still have to rescue Min Chae. The old cop chuckles, saying it is weird seeing him act so friendly. He jokes that his new partner needs to carry him out. Their alliance is now sealed in blood. Inside the dusty warehouse, the doors finally burst open with bright light. And that is where we leave our heroes. They took a brutal beating, but they saved her. Seung-ji cuts her loose with a glass shard. Right after she is freed, her legs collapse and she falls straight into his lap. You and I know she always tried to act tough, but now, she is crying like a terrified child who just stared death in the face. He lets Hyo Min-chae cry it out and release all that built-up trauma. Together with the detective, they had sent that brute straight to hell. There was absolutely nothing left to fear. Soon, the medical team arrives, and they stage the scene to make it look like the detective rescued the girl alone. Meanwhile, our main character slips back into the shadows unnoticed. The narrative is set the killer has escaped, and just like that, the case is officially closed. However, a TV broadcast about the incident quickly catches the attention of a wealthy businessman. Piece by piece, he starts connecting the dots. This mysterious officer had popped up during the Gagaku battle, and now again in this kidnapping. He begins to suspect that the detective might actually be another creator of hells. The public believes the suspect is on the run, but what if he is trapped inside the detective's personal hell? Suspicious. Yoon Young-han decides it is time to make a call to his CEO. He requests his boss to dig into Detective Park Sang-sik, using the excuse of wanting to show gratitude for the rescue. Soon enough, he will find out if his dark suspicions about the officer are true. The next morning at the hospital, Yeom Sung-gi reviews some papers, while Hyo Min-chae rests. Slowly opening her eyes, she finds the young man sitting right there, teasingly telling her that the brat has finally woken up. Without a second thought, she throws herself into his arms, sending everything clattering to the floor. Yeom Sung-ji is totally flustered by the sudden contact, but seeing her tears, his expression softens. Honestly, he is handling this pretty well for a guy. Blushing, he gently places Hyo Min-chae back on the bed to rest. She needs to calm down, and in the meantime, he will update the detective. Before he goes, though, he hands over some crucial files containing intel on their other two opponents. He wanted to share this earlier, but with all the chaos, he is only getting the chance now. Leaving the room, Yeom Sung-ji tells Hyo Min-chae to study the papers carefully and bids her to take good care of herself. Entering the detective's room, Park Sang-sik playfully acts hurt that he visited Hyo Min-chae first. Imagine a grown man getting jealous. As they chat, the officer reaches into his pocket and hands a key to Yeom Sung-ji. After all this madness, it is clear that hunting down other hell creators is going to be incredibly difficult. Psychos like that serial killer have absolutely no limits, and the danger will only escalate as the game continues. The key is a spare to Park Sang-sik's own house. Even the craziest opponents would think twice before breaking into a detective's home, making it the perfect safe house for them. Yeom Sung-ji agrees with the solid logic. Honestly, having an actual adult in their corner is a major relief. He promises to pack up and move in as soon as he finishes sorting things out at home. However, Park Sang-sik has one last thing for him. He pulls out a notebook and hands it over. Inside are the actual, correct numbers and details, completely different from the fake one he shared during their alliance. Now, pay attention here. Yeom Sung-ji's entire world shatters right now because the detective's shady action counts as a direct betrayal. If his key activates, this is his best shot to eliminate him. The detective is too dangerous to keep around, boasting top-tier abilities and combat experience. If left alive, he will definitely become the ultimate final boss of this game. What should Yeom Sung-ji do now? With the betrayal fully confirmed, should he save this trump card for later, or should he pull the trigger and eliminate him right here? Noticing his strange look, the officer asks if he is feeling sick. Yeom Sung-ji quickly dodges the question, making an excuse to use the restroom. Naturally, his keys are already glowing bright in his pocket. Baphomet manifests immediately, pointing out the modified details in the notebook and reminding him of just how close they came to getting killed because of it. Since the sin of betrayal is fully established, this is the ultimate opportunity to wipe the detective out. He is incredibly strong, knows too much, and if he betrays them again, it might happen at a fatal moment where Yeom Sung-ji is forced straight into the detective's own hell. The boy grips his key tightly. When the archdemon offered him the power to design a hell, he chose betrayal simply because it was the one sin he absolutely detested above all else. But if he turns on Park Sang-sik now, he will become the very thing he hates. He would be no different from the vile sinners he condemned to eternal torment. Looking at the bigger picture, what if this betrayal becomes his own bad karma when he dies? He could end up trapped in his very own hell, forced to stare at the faces of everyone he ever hated forever. That is the absolute last thing he wants. Baphomet sighs, reminding him that he originally chose him to exploit his raw inferiority complex, dark thoughts, and pure anger to construct the most terrifying, perfect hell possible. Yet, the closer he gets to these two humans, the more he changes into someone else. The demon makes it clear that human bonds mean nothing to him. But if the boy's decisions ever put them in danger, he will make him regret it for the rest of his life. Yeom Sung-ji accepts the harsh conditions, confidently telling the demon that he won't have any reason to regret trusting him. Back inside the hospital room, the trio gathers to chat and relax for a bit. But their peace is cut short when a wealthy man approaches, and it is none other than Yu Nang-han. Having gathered all the intel he needed, the businessman decides to make his grand entrance. Following a brief conversation, Heo Min-chae excuses herself to head back to her own room and rest. In the hallway, these two creators of hell cross paths without even realizing it. Here is the part you and I need to watch closely as Yu Nang-han enters the room, acting all friendly, immediately putting our guys on high alert. Dropping the fake smile, he bluntly asks if they are teaming up or plotting to send him to hell. While the young kid tenses up, the veteran detective calmly steps forward. Playing completely dumb, Park Sang-sik claims he has no clue what the man is talking about and questions his presence in a private ward. In response, the businessman sneers, saying his acting deserves a Nobel Prize. With their backs against the wall, the tension is unreal. Yu Nang-han continues talking, stating that officially, he only came to congratulate a heroic officer who saved a young girl from a vicious killer. But his true motive is to propose a mutual alliance. While Yeom Sung-ji is completely caught off guard, his mind races as he desperately wonders how this guy managed to track them down in the first place. Did he slip up during their previous battle, or did he leave some critical trace behind the night they saved Heo Min-chae? The elite businessman easily reads the boy's confusion. He explains that connecting the dots was simple. After all, a high-profile detective working alongside a kid who looks way too young to be his partner is bound to turn heads. To make matters worse, Yu Nang-han had his personal secretary dig into their background, which is how he uncovered the shocking truth that Yeom Sung-ji is actually just a high school student. Placing a gift basket on the table, he questions why a famous detective would break jurisdiction and drag a mere high school kid into such a dangerous and deadly business. This led him to the logical conclusion that they are both creators of hell who formed a temporary pact. During the Gagaku confrontation and this killer case, they had teamed up because their enemies were also active players. With all his evidence laid out on the table, his logic is bulletproof. What should our guys do now? Should they confess to his face? Or does the detective have a clever trick up his sleeve? Park Sang-sik suddenly smirks and mocks the businessman, asking what exactly he expects them to confess. His bold reaction catches everyone else in the room completely off guard. Before anyone can speak, the detective asks what Yu Jung-hyuk is truly after. Do they need to drop to their knees and beg to be his loyal servants, like Jang Cheol did? Or maybe not. It seems this wealthy player has finally met a matched opponent. Yu Jung-hyuk says submission is not necessary, and that is where we leave it, trust me. You are going to want to see what happens next. Alright, you and I are about to dive into a deadly game of betrayal where nobody can be trusted. See, if this guy wanted them dead, he would have sent his lackeys. Instead, he wanted a real alliance. But Park Se-hyuk shuts him down instantly. He already has the architect on his side, and likely the streamer too. It is time to expose what this spoiled rich brat is actually after. Smirking, he drops a massive bombshell that catches everyone off guard. Apparently, young Cheol has completely vanished. The businessman has no clue if he is rotting in hell or locked up somewhere. That is why he wants to hunt down the culprit. He needs to find the ghost who moved right under his nose. Whoever pulled this off is easily the most dangerous player in their game. Reaching out, Yoo Jun-hyuk makes it clear he is not here to waste time with empty promises. He wants them to team up until they locate the mastermind behind the architect's disappearance. Hearing this, Yum Sung-gil makes his final move. This businessman is a lethal threat, and dragging him to the hell of betrayal will be tough. That hell has its limits, but there is always a workaround. So, he reaches out and shakes his hand. Yum Sung-gil plays along, planning to make him betray him. Meanwhile, pay attention here. In an abandoned building, the architect is tied to a chair as his shadow approaches. It is a girl who seemed totally harmless until now, Chae Mujin. The moment she enters, two massive thugs bow down in deep respect. She coldly orders them to rip the tape off the man's mouth and make him speak. Jung Chel begins screaming curses, demanding to know who they are and what they want. Ignoring his panic, Chae Mujin simply demands to know his crime and starts counting down. When the clock runs out and he stays silent, she orders her demon to break him. The architect begs to talk, but it is too late. His finger is snapped backward, sending him into absolute agony. Through his screams, she calmly repeats the question. Terrified and desperate, Jung Chul begs to speak, promising to answer absolutely anything she wants. Her response? Break another one. As the architect, writhing in pain, screams, she softly explains she only wants direct answers. She asks again, and this time, he gasps out that his crime was negligence. Chae Mujin asks if he knows about any other player's hell. Fighting the agonizing pain, he chokes out the name Capable. But since that is not clear enough for her, another finger snaps. He screams that Capable is actually a player's alias, but the punishment continues anyway. Now, I know what you are thinking, but watch this. A printer suddenly begins to hum in the silent room. If he meant a person, he should have just been clear from the beginning. The broken man can only weep, sobbing that he promised to cooperate. Too late for regrets. She looks over the newly printed files on Yu Nong-han, the one they call Capable. He seems highly intelligent and connected, but to her, none of that matters. She will find a way to drag him straight to hell. Turning to her accomplices, she motions them closer and tells them it is time to prepare. Meanwhile, back at the hospital, Yu Nong-han admits he has no info on who snatched Jung Chul, making an investigation almost impossible. But there is one thing he knows for sure. If Jung Chul spilled any secrets to the enemy, they would definitely set up an ambush. He asks his squad if they are ready, and they shout in agreement. That ambush is exactly where the businessman plans to trap his target. This whole mess traces back to an alliance formed 12 years ago. Deep inside a parking garage, brutal executions were underway on a mob boss's orders. One gangster desperately tries to defend their honor, shouting that these absolute rats cannot just walk away unpunished. But they instantly shut him up with a brutal strike, beating him mercilessly until he goes completely silent. They knew the massive risks of coming here, and they arrived for one reason only: to settle the score. If you had just stayed quiet and accepted your fate, you might have escaped with a few simple slaps, sneers the rival gang leader, Kim Jung-soo. Suddenly, 3 imported luxury cars roll into the garage, and armed men step out of each one. Chae Moon-jung, the legendary leader of the Chae Seo Bang gang, has arrived. Kim Jung-soo greets him with absolute disrespect. While his men fume at this audacity, the boss remains calm and demands to know what they want. He just smirks. It is useless to pretend they do not know why they came. After all, they have some serious unfinished business. A wheelchair rolls forward, revealing a paralyzed young man named Cho Seung-rak. He was once a powerful leader of the Jongno gang. Just look at the state he is in now. He was beaten so savagely that no one knows if he will ever walk again. Kim Jung-soo demands to know how the Chae Seo Bang boss is going to pay for this damage. But another thug pipes up, claiming it was entirely Cho Seung-rak's own fault. If he had not trespassed into their territory, none of this would have happened. But before he can say another word, his own boss silences him with a brutal slap. So, if Chae Moon-jung understands the stakes, then it means the old man is fully prepared to pay up for the massive damages. 2 suitcases are tossed at his feet, The arrogant rival demands he fill them both with cash and hand over a massive cut of his territory's profits. With those resources, the rival gang would expand at lightning speed. What a pity the boss's son ended up a vegetable. So, what is the old man waiting for? Fill those bags up right now, or they can just go ahead and declare all-out war. Instead of answering, Chae Moon-jung orders his man to bring his daughter. A tiny girl is led out of the car. At the time, she was only 7 years old. Kim Jung-soo scoffs, asking what kind of pathetic sympathy play he is trying to pull on hardened mobsters. But the old man just gently strokes his daughter's hair, telling her that the beast in front of them is owed a debt and she must pay it. The old man pulls a razor-sharp blade from his coat. The enemy declared his boss's son would never walk again. So, if he does the exact same thing to his own daughter, they will finally be even. Before anyone can blink, he brutally slices both of the little girl's Achilles tendons. The entire crowd stands frozen in complete, horrified shock. Nobody could have predicted a twist this sick. Hardened criminals who had been in the underworld for over 20 years had never seen a father mutilate his own flesh and blood. This absolute madman had crossed every single line. As the little girl screams in agonizing pain, her father strokes her hair once more, whispering that he owes her everything and will repay her. Suddenly, we skip to the present as a mysterious item drops to the floor. Dozens of gangsters lie broken on the ground. Eerily, thick black smoke pours from their mouths, noses, and ears. Sitting quietly in her wheelchair amidst the absolute carnage is Chae Moon-jung. Her demon asks if he should finish them off, but she refuses. She wants to collect this blood debt personally. All he has to do is push her wheelchair. Inside the main hall, her father shivers in fear, knowing his judgment day has arrived. His daughter has finally amassed enough terrifying power to collect on his ancient debt. He frantically begs her to stay back, but his pleas are completely useless. Chae Moon-jung turns a key, unleashing a literal hell that consumes her father's body and soul. With her ancient debt finally settled, she vanishes. If the businessman rules the light, she dominates the deep shadows. Unlike Yu Nong-han and his crew, who bypass the law using massive corporate influence, the syndicate under her command commits brutal sins in her name just to escape being dragged to hell. A loyal subordinate hands over the businessman's exact schedule. She praises him, then asks what they should do with the broken architect. And trust me, we leave him begging for mercy. He spilled everything, and just like the rest of them, he was merely a pawn for Yu Nong-han. You and I are jumping right into a high-stakes standoff as she glares into his eyes, telling him she is letting him slide. But he owes her one because she could have easily ended him right there. Jang Chul accepts. A debt is way better than dying. So, the gang leader orders her men to let him go. He still has some value left. She takes one last look at the businessman's schedule. The big charity party is in 2 days. The absolute perfect moment for a surprise attack. Chae Moon-jung orders her crew to round up every fighter they have. The big day is here, and the army is assembled. She asks if they are ready, and a loud roar of agreement echoes back. It is go time. They move out to their vehicles. While over at a massive mansion, the gala is already underway, with Yu Nong-han mingling with the elite. Suddenly, he spots his key guests. Yeom Sung-ji and Park Sang-sik were invited to serve as his personal security tonight, but that was definitely not what they had in mind. The detective grumbles that he is only there for the free food. The kid accepted this alliance, not him. Yeom Sung-ji tells him to stop crying about it, then asks the businessman if their target will actually show up tonight. He confidently replies that they will, because unlike guarded corporate high-rises, this venue has easy access and terrible security. It is simple for anyone to blend into the crowd. They are walking straight into his trap. Another hell creator is heading to the party, and this deadly game is starting up again. Inside the rented mansion, the party is absolutely buzzing. But from a distance, Chae Moon-jung quietly monitors the police patrols using her binoculars. For a major event, this security is a complete joke. Even her rookies could plan a better defense. Her young subordinate looks over and asks what their move is. Now, pay attention here, because this is where their real target, Yu Nong-han, comes into play. Passing up this opportunity would be a waste, and as for anyone else, they will just slaughter anyone in their path. The young gangster steps out of the vehicle and walks calmly toward the front gate. Right on cue, a security guard stops him, demanding to see his invitation. The guy reaches inside his jacket, like he is searching for a pass. The guard watches him closely, but instead of paper, he pulls out a weapon. Faster than lightning, he strikes the guard down. One threat eliminated. The sheer speed of the strike leaves the second guard completely frozen with zero time to sound the alarm. Just like that, the main entrance is wide open. Chae Moon-jung broadcasts the order over the radio for teams 1 and 2 to move in. The vehicles gun their engines and crash right through. There is zero stealth here, and everyone notices. An army of heavily armed thugs floods the venue. Hijacking the audio system, the gang leader warns the innocent guests that if they want to live, they need to stay completely still. She commands them to line up against the walls because their only target is the QS businessmen. Anyone who hesitates or resists will be treated as an enemy and shot. Yu Nonghan watches the chaos unfold. So, they actually showed up. He realizes he needs to slip away quietly before absolute panic takes over. Suddenly, a loud scream cuts through the air, and a guest falls to the floor. The poor guy was made into a brutal example to show everyone they are not playing games. Instantly, the crowd panics and runs for their lives, but the businessman remains perfectly still. The gunman spots him standing there. Yom Sung-ji is itching to jump in and see how this plays out, but the detective grabs him, refusing to let him throw his life away. Just because they agreed to a temporary alliance does not mean they should die for this guy. There are easily over 24 armed thugs swarming the place. There is no way to take on this entire army at once. Honestly, if Yunnan Han gets wiped out, it actually helps them. He is a dangerous player, so letting the gang do the dirty work makes perfect sense. Honestly, you and I both know there is not much they can do as the businessman tries to act completely cool. A lackey radios the boss, confirming they have located the target and asking where to bring him. Her response is cold and immediate. Do not bring him anywhere. Just end him right there. Her demon companion asks why she is not dragging him down to hell. She reminds him the rules are simple. Lucifer declared this a death game, and banishing souls is not the only path to victory. Showing her face here to banish him personally is way too risky. Plus, that coward architect spilled the beans that the businessman has recruited another dangerous player named Gagaka to defend him. The memory of that screaming architect giving up the secrets flashes in her mind. Walking into that mansion makes her an open target. She is simply playing it safe. The demon understands, but he hates this cautious approach. What he really craves is watching human souls get dragged down to eternal torment. She bursts into laughter, telling Cherubim to be patient. Once this match concludes, she will drag every single gangster present on the day of her injury down to hell herself. Meanwhile, the businessman acts like he planned this whole thing. He snaps his fingers, announcing the real game starts now. A thug sneers, asking if he has completely lost his mind. Suddenly, armed operatives step out from the crowd, surrounding the invaders. A brutal melee erupts, and it looks like Yu Nonghan's secret forces are quickly taking control of the room. The gang might have tracked his schedule, but they could never hack the private guest list. Long before the party, the businessman hired undercover elite fighters to blend seamlessly into the crowd. He ordered them to act normal, stay hidden, and watch for any trouble. He respects her guts for trying to hit him, but wonders what her next move is. Hidden away, she just grins. Her field soldiers radio in, panicking that the undercover guards have blocked all access to the target. Calmly, she orders teams 3 and 4 to breach. Outside, another wave of armored vehicles roars to life and smashes onto the estate grounds. Yu Nonghan watches the backup arrive, completely unfazed. He slowly retreats toward the main house, knowing it is finally time for the mastermind to make her move. She commands her demon to hunt the businessman down and bring him back. If he succeeds, she promises him the rank of Hell Commander. Cherubim steps out and heads for his target. The war rages across the garden, but the moment Cherubim steps onto the field, his monstrous strength completely shifts the momentum. The demon has no true physical body, relying on possessing human hosts. But mid-strike, he shatters his current host's hand, leaving him open. An enemy seizes the moment, landing a heavy blow from behind. Cherubim uses the destruction of his old shell to instantly jump into the body of the man who attacked him. With his new host secured, he grins, feeling more powerful than ever. This body is a massive upgrade. But because he is a demon, he couldn't care less about allies or enemies. He starts slaughtering everyone, plunging the battlefield into total chaos. He screams at the gang members to exploit the distraction and storm the mansion. Re-energized, the mob surges forward once again. Watch closely as the deadly board game between these two bosses continues, piece by piece. For you and me, it is clear this isn't about timing, but winning at all costs. Massive thuds shake the front entrance as thugs relentlessly batter the door. Suddenly, a powerhouse arrives, kicking the heavy doors clean off their hinges and letting the mob flood inside. He barks orders to split into small groups of 2 or 3 to hunt. They are not leaving this mansion without Yu Nonghan's head. All right, you and I are diving right into the chaos as everyone scatters inside the massive mansion. 2 goons start complaining about how filthy rich people love to show off, completely clueless about what is waiting for them. One of them spots a closet, thinking it is empty, and pulls it open. Big mistake. Inside is Gagaga, holding his key. One by one, he begins swallowing the gangsters whole, dragging them straight into his invasion hell. But there is a catch. In theory, his power is not even supposed to work inside this mansion. But Yu Nangang Han is a master strategist. Before making any attack plans, he secured his defense. He took the property deeds of his estates and legally added Gagaga's name to all of them. He did this specifically so the boy could trigger his domain on any private property. Using this loophole, Gagaga turned the entire mansion into his personal playground, packing it with secret passages and traps. He can now slip through the walls and reach any room faster than anyone else, pushing his powers to the absolute limit. Meanwhile, Yoon Young Han watches the carnage unfold from the VIP room. Way more goons than expected are falling into Gagaka's pocket dimension, but they still have not located the big boss. Where on earth is the enemy leader hiding? Eventually, the chaotic assault grinds to a sudden halt. Che Mujin realizes her men are vanishing at a terrifying rate, hearing nothing but their fading screams before they get swallowed. She suspects this bizarre power belongs to the businessman or his mysterious partner. Unfortunately, she has already sent almost all her troops inside. Thinking fast, she orders her remaining men to retreat to the garden, a safe zone where the enemy key cannot be triggered. One by one, the survivors scramble outside. Looks like they are not completely brainless, choosing to back off before it is too late. Now pay attention here, just when the boy is starting to have real fun, the enemies decide to pull back. Left with no other options, Yoon Young Han stays put and tells Gagaka to hold the line. Calling the cops right now would be a complete waste of time. The only card he has left to turn this whole mess around is his secret alliance with Yeom Sung-ji. Outside, the duo blends in with the terrified guests, holding their ground. Suddenly, Yeom Sung-ji pulls a hidden earpiece from his pocket. It turns out they have an extra player on the board, someone even Yoon Young Han does not know about. Hu Min-chae is their ultimate trump card. He contacts her over the radio, and she answers instantly, loud and clear. Yeom Sung-ji wastes no time and asks if she has located the player attacking the estate. To make her abilities work, she begins sprinting around the perimeter of the mansion. Her radar can sense Yeom Sung-ji, Park Sang-sik, Yoon Young Han, Gagaka, and one final mysterious presence. The target is lingering near the entrance, but since it is a woman, she cannot drag her into the hell of lust. He tells her they are stuck for now and asks if she is ready to follow his command. Having stared death in the face before, she knows he is her best bet. She nods, telling him she is ready for whatever comes next. Their first move is to make contact with this mystery woman and figure out why she is hiding. Chances are, her pocket dimension has very low versatility, leaving her with limited moves. Plus, with her demon stationed safely in the garden, she has a window of opportunity. She cautiously approaches the car. Meanwhile, Che Mujin stresses over her next move. The police show up. She is finished. Suddenly, Heo Min-chae yanks open the car door, startling her. Acting completely casual, the girl asks to jump in, complaining about the cold. When the mob boss demands to know who she is, Heo Min-chae decides showing is better than telling and pulls out her key. How did she know she was there? And more importantly, how did she know she was a fellow Hell creator? Could that be her actual ability? The girl tells her to relax. She is not here for a fight, proving it by showing that her key is completely inactive. Instead, she reveals that someone else wants to have a little chat with her. She hands over her earpiece, slipping it right into Che Mujin's ear. The line connects, and the gangster asks what he wants. If he is calling from the garden, he must be blending in with the VIP guests. And yeah, I know what you were thinking, he is hiding, but he has a solid plan. He wants to team up to take down Yoon Nun Han. Right now, she is completely useless, stuck outside, especially with her crew just standing around in the garden. But if she is willing to follow his lead, they can catch the wealthy businessman by absolute surprise. She hesitates, unsure of this mysterious guy's true motives, but like she said, she is completely cornered with 0 moves left out here. Everything is playing out exactly as Yeom Sung-ji planned. In the end, she accepts the alliance, immediately relaying fresh orders to her subordinates on the ground. The mobsters corner the VIP guests, forcing them to obey every single word. Everyone is forced to line up and march right back inside the host's mansion. Cautiously, the crowd begins to move. Everything goes smoothly. Once the hostages are packed inside, the next phase begins, 1 gangster per guest. Each goon pairs up directly with a captive, holding them close. It looks like a bizarre, high-stakes 3-legged race is about to start inside the estate. This genius strategy comes from Yeom Sung-ji, designed specifically to completely neutralize Gaga's pocket dimension. Gagaga contacts Yoon Hong Han, asking for his next move. Unfortunately, those hostages are highly valuable clients, including some of the most influential people in the country. Aside from the guests, what would the other Hell creators think of him? How could he possibly explain this disaster to the police? In short, he is completely trapped by his own status. To protect his reputation and empire, he cannot afford to unleash his powers. He strictly orders Gagaga not to use his ability, letting the mobsters search the area unimpeded. From the start, Yeom Sung-ji had zero interest in the players hunting Yun Hong Han. He knows the real threat is the businessman himself, and taking him down is all that matters. Yun Hong Han begins to panic. The gangsters, who had been relying on nothing but raw, brainless brute force, are suddenly pulling off highly strategic moves. It is obvious someone else has taken the wheel. But who is this mastermind pulling the strings from the shadows? He thought he had the upper hand with his allies. Does his opponent also have secret connections? No, that is impossible. The mastermind behind these new orders has to be someone on the inside, which is exactly why they easily shut down Gagaga's power. He really did not want to rely on his demon's cheat skill, but he has no choice now. Summoning Ram, the massive entity instantly materializes right by his side. The desperate businessman demands to use his future vision. Since this is the first time a human has ever requested this power, the demon happily obliges, slamming his staff onto the ground. The Eye of Horus glows fiercely as a magical seal spreads across the floor. Yun Hong Han avoided using this broken ability before, because it is limited to just 3 charges. He is not dumb enough to waste it on anything minor. As the room fills with blinding light, the businessman gets a glimpse of the dark future unfolding over the next few hours. The enemy will locate his hideout, and Yeom Sung-ji is indeed the mastermind. When he tries to trigger his key, he gets blocked and brutally ambushed by the boy. And just like that, he would lose his life right then and there. Discovering Yeom Sung-ji's treachery drives him into an absolute rage. If Baphomet's power is detecting the essence of death, Rams is to foresee the immediate future and completely rewrite it. Grabbing his radio, he orders Gagaku to hunt down Yeom Sung-ji immediately. But there is a huge catch. He is currently a guest, not an intruder. So what do you and I make of this crazy tactical war? In pure panic, the businessman watches the cameras, tracking the boy's steps. Trust me, the real battle is just beginning. Alright, you and I are diving into a setup where Yeom Sung-ji actually had no master plan. He lacked the intel to draw up such a crazy scheme, but he had reliable allies, especially that trusty detective keeping watch on the outside. Without those allies, he never would have survived this massive information war. And unfortunately for Yun Hong Han, out of all his lucky streaks, today was about to become his absolute worst nightmare. Ram is completely stunned seeing the human shake like a leaf. He had totally miscalculated from day one. He figured the detective and the architect's kidnapper were the real threats, but that student was a total Trojan horse. Right now, he couldn't even rely on Gagaku's special power. He was completely on his own. He couldn't believe a total nobody like that had actual loyal allies. He was ready to punish this stupid kid for his sheer incompetence. So, he orders Gagaku to move screw whatever the guests might think. They wouldn't get dragged into this mess anyway. Gagaku is absolutely thrilled by the command. Unleashing his power without any annoying restrictions, his inner demon couldn't possibly be happier. With a puff of smoke, he transforms straight into Yun Hong Han. Now, it is just a wild game of tag with a decoy. And right on cue, their targets fall for the trap like absolute fools. Now pay attention, because in just this first wave, they instantly take out 4 opponents. The key turns, the gates slide open, and word spreads that the big boss is already lurking near the lobby. Time to ignore the guests and make a move. Yeom Sung-ji is totally baffled as to why the gangster beside him suddenly bolted, especially since the guy didn't even have a comms device. The guy claimed he spotted the target elsewhere in the mansion, which made 0 sense. Just surviving while hiding out here is hard enough. What on earth is this absolute lunatic actually plotting? The real Yun Hong Han shows up, marching straight toward Yeom Sung-ji while Jin Jiang keeps the others distracted. Even Ram is questioning the move, asking if he actually has a real plan here. Exposing himself so openly like this is incredibly risky, but his target is locked. Find that nerdy kid and end him. When his demon questions how he will pull it off, the businessman simply holds out his key. He can literally see the future, a cheat code his opponent doesn't possess. To a powerhouse with future sight, someone like Yeom Sung-ji is nothing more than an incompetent amateur. With that, Yun Hong Han warns Ram to never doubt him again. He absolutely despises anyone looking down on him. After all, he built himself up from nothing. Meanwhile, an elderly woman walks down a dark hallway. Behind the door is a 7-year-old Yun Hong Han. She greets the boy with unmatched warmth, asking if he is hungry and offering some fresh, roasted sweet potatoes she brought for them to share. The little boy explains he is studying hard to become a big boss and make tons of cash. Back then, his dream of wealth was so pure. He just wanted a decent life and to clear his dad's massive debts so they could stop running. Stroking his hair, his grandmother gently reminds him that even though money and fame seem dazzling, some things in life matter far more. The kid looks a bit puzzled. So his grandmother explains that precious moments like the ones they share can never be bought with any amount of cash. You can't buy everyone with money, and even the richest people on earth can't own everything. Simply put, she didn't want him ending up like his father, who let greed blind him until he lost absolutely everything. Flash forward a few years, and they are stuck in a law office. The crushing bills have finally caught up, leaving them with a debt they can never pay. I know what you are thinking, and yes, it gets even sadder. The stress makes his elderly grandmother terribly sick, leaving young Yoon Young-han completely alone. While still grieving, a cold collector demands payment for her cremation. Since he has no cash, the ruthless collector tries to snatch the urn. It slips, crashing down and scattering his grandmother's ashes all over the dirty floor. From that dark day, Yoon Young-han worked any job he could find. Standing in the pouring rain, watching his few belongings get soaked, his grandmother's words about money and fame felt like a cruel joke. Evicted with all his worldly possessions dumped on the curb, he realized a hard truth without money and status. You are absolutely nothing. Right then, he swore an oath to never let anyone look down on him again. He buried himself in his studies with laser-like focus. To reach the peak, he would step on the weak, discard the incompetent, and only align with those who could help him climb higher. That cold ambition pushed him to the absolute top of QS Corporation. Now, as employees beg at his feet, he feels absolutely zero sympathy for them. To him, if they hated failing, they should have just stopped being so useless. It was far better for garbage like them to just vanish from his sight. He wanted to drag those lazy, privileged, yet incompetent fools through actual hell. That's when a dark, supernatural entity approached him, choosing him as the perfect vessel. It offered him a terrifying new way to handle the pathetic humans he despised so much, ensuring he would never be at a disadvantage again. And now, stalking through the mansion, he finally comes face to face with Yeom Sung-ji. The kid spots him and recoils, knowing the tycoon should technically still be trapped over in the main hall. But the businessman is only here to make Yeom Sung-ji pay for making him look foolish. Yeom Sung-ji is utterly shocked to see Yoon Young-han standing right in front of him instead of the entryway. Glaring at him, the tycoon screams that he will punish him for the crime of making him look stupid. He steps up with supreme confidence, absolutely certain of his victory. He knows the kid cannot banish him to hell, assuming Yeom Sung-ji's version of hell is far weaker and less versatile than his own. Through the brutal clash with Gagaku, their hospital encounter, and even during this chaotic party, never once when his life was on the line did he use that key, proving his hell is highly restricted. His second certainty, Yeom Sung-ji has already committed the ultimate sin, being totally incompetent. Blindly striking an enemy without understanding their powers while relying strictly on logic is a fatal flaw. Against a genius like Yoon Young-han, rebelling was a massive mistake, bringing them to this final showdown. But is the ruthless tycoon actually right? Is Yeom Sung-ji truly as useless as he thinks? Well, the answer is right in front of us. The key remains completely cold, sparkless, driving the tycoon insane with doubt. If he possesses future sight while his opponent does not, how is he the one acting completely incompetent right now? Desperate for answers, Yoon Young-han turns on Ram and starts screaming at his own demon, demanding to know if predicting the kid's movement proved his superior intellect. But Ram just stares back in silence, swallowing hard. A smirk slowly spreads across the kid's face. Sure, predicting the future is an incredible trick, but what actual good does it do him in a cornered spot like this? Even with the tycoon stepping closer, Yeom Sung-ji does not feel a single hint of killing intent, meaning Yoon Young-han has completely ceased to be a threat. By law, crimes require action, but does simply plotting a murder in your head make you a true criminal? The answer is a flat no. That means the future Yoon Young-han foresaw and tried to prevent can no longer be classified as a crime. By predicting Yeom Sung-ji's moves, he actively ensured the crime never took place. To seal his fate, Yeom Sung-ji mocks him, stating the businessman never even understood his own powers. Yoon Young-han is left completely paralyzed, realization hitting him like a physical blow. Since he could only glimpse the future 3 times a year, this was literally his first time activating it. Because he hoarded it for so long, his sheer ignorance of his own power has completely backfired. But trust me, you and I know what is coming. He still thinks the kid can't drag him to hell, but Yeom Sung-ji's key is suddenly blindingly bright. Alright, you and I are jumping right into a wild twist where Yoon Young-han realizes his visions are useless. By altering the timeline, Yom Sung-ji now has the ultimate power to drag him straight to hell. After all, this greedy businessman had betrayed him. Now he screams in pure terror, unable to accept this fate because he always thought he made the perfect moves. But that selfishness is exactly why he is being judged. His constant betrayal finally caught up to him as a dark portal opens, sending massive tentacles reaching out to grab Yoon Han. Just like that, the businessman is dragged screaming into Yom Sung-ji's hell as the doors slam shut. Victory is decided, proving that, sometimes, being patient really is the best weapon. By holding back from attacking the detective earlier, they successfully snared Yoon Han. Ram notes that this is the end of him before dissolving right before their eyes. Baphomet is absolutely thrilled. But as they turn to their next target, Yom Sung-ji suddenly stumbles, his legs giving out. His partner asks what is wrong with him. They still have plenty of targets left. Yom Sung-ji explains he is not going soft, but the sheer stress of those gangsters crashing the party, combined with his last-second strategy against Yoon Han, was just too much. He was completely drained. No ordinary human could ever adapt to a chaotic situation like that so quickly. Still, his powers are growing fast, and it is time to wrap this up. On one side, we have Yoon Han's wealthy guests. On the other, Chae Mujin's brutal gang. An absolute mess for hell, creators like Gagaka and Park Sang-sik. Using the security room to his advantage, Yom Sung-ji starts planning a way to control this massive chaos. It is time for a cleanup. Smiling, he pulls out his phone and dials the police. To sell the act, he presses a finger to his throat and forces a cough. When the operator answers, he screams in a raspy voice that armed thugs have hijacked the venue and everything is a complete nightmare. The panicked dispatcher begs for the address. Yom Sung-ji's little performance was absolutely perfect. Now pay attention, because calling the cops was a genius move to prevent a bloodbath. With ordinary people and players trapped together, any sudden trigger would spark an absolute free-for-all. The second reason was simple. He needed Chae Mujin's massive gang pinned down instantly, and that is exactly how it went down. Cops swarm the place and start cuffing the thugs, but a dangerous wild card remains. The girl's shadow demon is being dragged away, but at the first chance, he possesses an officer, hijacking his body. Sensing danger, the demon knows he has to shield his human companion right away. He drops his weapon and dashes straight toward her. Watching the feeds, Yom Sung-ji orders Hu Min-chae to abandon her car immediately. She grabs her earpiece and steps out into the night. Since Yoon Han is finished, her role in this mission is officially over. She bids farewell to Chae Mujin and slips away like a harmless local. Moments later, Cherubim arrives at the empty vehicle, deeply worried about his human. But the night's events left her highly unsettled. She never anticipated facing someone as incredibly cunning and dangerous as Yoon Han. Without even touching his rival, he took him down and completely humiliated her. They have to escape fast because that caller on the phone is a major threat. Meanwhile, Yom Sung-ji is working out how to wipe all the recorded security footage. Ripping out the cables, he hurls the computer monitor across the room, then stomps on the hard drive until it completely short-circuits. The authorities cannot find out what went down. If they do, a massive witch hunt against Hell creators will erupt. To be safe, he grabs a fire extinguisher and sprays the smoking wreckage. With the evidence destroyed, his escape plan is ready. All that is left is to slip into the crowd and vanish. Baphomet asks if they have any remaining chores, causing Yom Sung-ji to pause. They still need to deal with Gagaka, the streamer allied with Yoon Han. Realizing his boss was gone and unreachable, the streamer had the same brilliant idea to blend into the fleeing crowd. Suddenly, someone stops him, giving him a massive scare. But don't worry, it is just a friendly cop offering to escort him safely home, telling him there is nothing to fear. He mutters his thanks and climbs in, relieved to have escaped. But he has no clue that Yom Sung-ji's third reason for calling the cops was giving the detective a perfect chance to isolate Gagaka from the crowd. Inside the patrol car, Gagaka exhales a massive sigh of relief, still stunned that he survived. He rattles off his home address, totally oblivious that his driver is actually another deadly hell creator. Park Sang-sik hits the gas, but as they drive, Gagaka realizes something is seriously wrong with their route. They are driving away from the city center, not toward it. He glances nervously at the driver's seat and finally recognizes Detective Park Sang-sik. Yoon Han claimed the detective was on their side, but being driven to a secluded spot while his boss is missing points to a trap. He has to escape this vehicle right now. He considers jumping out since they are moving slowly, but forgets one crucial detail: the door is securely locked from the outside. A police cruiser is not a taxi, leaving him completely trapped with his enemy. Brandishing his key, Gagaka tries to threaten him, claiming a driver is at a major disadvantage. But Detective Park Sang-sik is unfazed, coldly challenging the kid to go ahead and open his portal. The young streamer is utterly speechless. He believed he still held a major trump card, but his desperate bluff has absolutely zero effect on the experienced detective. The detective has already figured out the kid's limitations. First, his targets are only sent to hell in very specific areas, meaning his ability has strict geographical limits to activate. If he does not own the territory, he cannot summon a portal. The detective then flashes his own key, warning Gagaka that if he refuses to open his hell, he will do it for him. With all the innocent souls, this kid is already condemned to eternal torment. He is far from innocent. If he wants to survive a little longer, he needs to sit back and play nice. Cornered with no escape, Gagaka surrenders to the detective's demands. Soon, they reach their destination, where none other than Carlos is waiting for them. Somehow, the young man beat them there, joking that his driver went into hyperdrive after he offered to double the fare. The detective notes that the important thing is they arrived, and now is time to meet the boss. The door swings open, and Gagaka bolts out like a frightened rabbit. He drops directly to his knees before Carlos, begging for forgiveness and admitting his mistakes. He offers to do absolutely anything, but looking up, he realizes it is not going to be that simple. The two men look down on him like a pathetic, inferior bug. Yu Nong Han claimed this guy was just the detective's errand boy, but the reality is completely flipped. The detective is actually his underling. The businessman foolishly underestimated him and paid the ultimate price. If gangsters had handled it, at least a corpse would remain. Carlos steps closer to the trembling boy, who quickly averts his gaze in fear. He casually notes that Yu Nong Han is already trapped in his personal hell, leaving only this pathetic little rat behind. The redhead shamelessly begs for mercy, but if he wants to stay alive, he has to prove he can actually be useful. Carlos smiles coldly. He has been planning to exploit Gagaka ever since their encounter at the mansion, mainly because the kid's specific hell conditions are perfect for defense. It works like an automatic defense tower against intruders. And trust me, you and I are going to see how much wilder this gets once his demon, Jin Jiang, is unleashed. Alright, you and I are jumping right back into the action. Using Gagaga as a decoy would easily mess with his enemies, making him a perfect shield before the final showdown. Since the game was still running, he could still exploit him. In the shadows, a mysterious figure watched the flashing lights of the police cars surrounding the mansion. With the cops crawling everywhere, the game had paused. That watcher was none other than the demoness, Sumana. Curious, she asked her human partner, Jane Doe, who she believed actually survived the clash. Jane coldly answered that Yu Nun Han was finished, despite previously looking like a highly promising contender in this fight. Think about it. If he had actually won, he never would have called the cops and risked exposing his secrets to the public. To clean up a mess like that, he would have quietly deployed his own private security force instead. That left only one logical conclusion. It could not have been the mob boss who defeated him either, since abandoning her own crew made absolutely zero sense. There was definitely a third player hiding in the shadows. Sumana smiled, deeply impressed by her human's sharp intellect. Their next move was clear. They had to target this third party. After all, they preferred catching the biggest prey. Jane Doe tightly gripped her pen against her clipboard. Before this newcomer could completely ruin their grand plans, they had to drag him straight to hell. Meanwhile, in a filthy apartment, Zhang Chul was hiding under his blankets. Gorgodon Killis was absolutely disgusted by his pathetic state. Sure, the human was traumatized, but rotting in bed was not going to solve his problems. Still, the architect kept crying about how exhausted he was of everything of Yu Sung Han and those terrifying gangsters. Just look at him. His fingers had been brutally shattered. After going through that nightmare, he was terrified of stepping outside, choosing to stay locked in and survive on simple food deliveries. He had only signed a contract with a demon because his annoying colleagues irritated him. He never wanted to fight for his life like this. Honestly, Gorgodon was deeply regretting picking such a useless human. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Zhang Chul yelled for the delivery guy to just leave the food outside, but the ringing kept going. Highly irritated, he kicked off his sheets and headed to the entrance. Now, pay attention here, he expected a delivery guy, but got a terrifying surprise instead. Standing right there was another demon in his human. It was the young Song Min Woo. Despite his young age, he was a ruthless demon master. Meanwhile, the news was completely flooded with one major story. Every single broadcast was discussing the bizarre disappearance of the QS conglomerate director. Yeom Sungji listened to the wild updates during his morning run. For the first time, a wave of peace seemed to wash over them. With the immediate danger faded, even Gagaka and Yeom Sungji relaxed, playing games and just chilling out. But the quiet was deceptive. Hu Min-chae kept digging deep into her research, while Song Min-woo quietly went to school like a regular kid. Meanwhile, Che Mujin desperately searched for a way to save her lost partner. Jane Doe used this lull to carefully refine her grand strategy. The reason for this sudden ceasefire was incredibly simple. With Yunong Han completely out of the picture, the playing field had finally stabilized. When the board is crowded, finding and exploiting a rival's weak spot is easy. But now, after surviving for so long, the remaining players fully understood the system. They knew that drawing any unnecessary attention would instantly paint a massive target on their backs. Up above, Lucifer watched. Only 7 survivors remained on the board. But this boring piece did not fit the King of Hell, and he was getting incredibly impatient. Suddenly, a shadow formed beside him. It was Timagul, Lucifer's personal assistant, who calmly noted that this kind of stalemate was bound to happen eventually. Massive games always lead to truces and balance. However, the king complained that during the tournament he played 700 years ago, things were far more violent. He missed the suffocating tension, the relentless warfare where nobody could sleep. That was the bloodbath he wanted. Seeing his master's boredom, Temagul suggested a scheme to shatter this boring piece, instantly sparking the king's curiosity. The loyal assistant pointed directly to a face on the screen, suggesting they invite the kid for a little chat. He was, after all, the mastermind behind this annoying piece and the core of the alliance. Back in the mortal world, Yom Sung-ji paused his run to catch his breath. Baphomet materialized behind him, mocking his physical limits and asking if he ever got tired of running around. The youth shrugged, pointing out that his physical conditioning was the only reason he survived his clash with the serial killer. Plus, he had no idea what kind of monstrous players or demon magic he would face next. Baphomet shrugged, unsure whether to praise his diligence or his caution. Yeom Sung-gi then casually asked how Hell was doing and if anyone was plotting an escape. The demon summoned his tracking tablet. Now, you and I both know how smart some souls are. Baphomet admitted there were attempts, but emphasized that Yeom Sung-ji was simply too brilliant for them. There was absolutely no escaping his domain. Honestly, there wasn't even a single hint that the condemned souls were plotting an uprising or planning a break. Suddenly, a brick slipped from the wall, nearly dragging Yu Sung-han back down. Dusting himself off, Baphomet asked the real question. How long did the human plan to keep this fragile alliance together? They were halfway through the match, and carrying such a massive group was dangerous. If he let personal emotions get in the way, it would only backfire. His allies might even turn and strike first. Visions of Hu Min Che and Park Sang-sik, apologizing while activating their keys, flashed in his mind. Yeom Sung-ji fell quiet. Patting Baphomet's shoulder, he firmly stated that the final choice was his alone to make. The demon just needed to have faith. Of course, Baphomet wanted to trust him, but he refused to face absolute erasure over soft human feelings. But mid-sentence, their conversation was abruptly cut short. Both spun around, instantly on guard. Through a thick haze of smoke, Temagul stepped forward with a smug greeting. He was highly intrigued by Yeom Sung-ji's absolute control over this entire tournament, but since he rarely interacted with mortals, pronouncing the kid's full name proved impossible. To a demon, human names were utterly baffling, so he lazily addressed him as Yeom something. Baphomet demanded to know his business, while Yeom Sung-ji asked who this intruder was. The horned demon introduced himself as Lucifer's personal assistant. Yeom Sung-ji wondered why a high-ranking devil would manifest, but then a chilling thought clicked. Right at the start, Baphomet warned him that Lucifer could alter the parameters whenever he pleased, purely for his own amusement. It seemed that dreaded moment had finally arrived. He asked if the demon had come to drop a new penalty, and Temagul commended the kid for his sharp mind. But before introducing any rules, the King of Hell wanted a direct word with him. The assistant waved his hand, tearing open a massive rift beneath their feet. Instantly, they were transported into Lucifer's private sanctum. As the king welcomed them, Baphomet dropped to his knees, leaving Yeom Sung-ji completely stunned. Lucifer admitted he knew Baphomet was capable, but never expected his human partner to be a complete genius. He had managed to ally with 4 out of the final 7 players peacefully, even bringing in a weak candidate. The demon bowed, muttering that the praise was making him blush, but Lucifer instantly cut him off. He was not giving compliments. The Dark Lord loomed over them, absolutely livid. These two were ruining his masterpiece. He wanted a brutal death game filled with legendary warfare, but they were turning it into a friendly co-op match suitable for school children. The Lord took a deep breath, trying to regain his composure. The king wanted to force Baphomet to select a new human vessel to play, but realized that would be far too arbitrary since they had followed the guidelines. Instead, he decided to issue a brutal little penalty for their cooperative behavior. Lucifer snapped his fingers, summoning 2 floating displays showing Hu Min Che and Park Sang-sik. With a wicked grin, the Lord gave Yeom Sung-gi exactly 1 week to send one of his beloved allies to hell. Yeom Sung-ji stood frozen, struggling to comprehend the cruel ultimatum. He turned to Baphomet, asking if such a rigged, unfair system was even allowed. He played strictly by the rules, and now he has to betray his closest friends. Trust me, you and I are going to want to see how he survives this nightmare. Baphomet warns him to quiet down. Let's dive right back in. Standing before him was Lucifer, the king of hell. Yet, our main character still boldly argues they shouldn't be penalized since they actually followed all the rules. Lucifer finds his boldness amusing, noting Baphomet picked the right partner. Still, the devil's word is law. This entire game was created solely for his personal entertainment. Basically, if Yeom Sung-ji refused to play by the new rules, he was completely replaceable. In that terrifying second, he truly felt the overwhelming authority of the Lord of Hell. Now, he faced a brutal choice: who would remain his ally, and who would he betray to the abyss. With Lucifer's speech finished, they were sent back to make their play. Before releasing them, Lucifer warns Baphomet never to let things get boring again. With that threat hanging in the air, they snap back to reality, and Yeom Sung-ji's left hand suddenly starts to tingle. Rolling up his sleeve, he sees a glowing countdown timer burned into his arm. A ticking clock. It was a harsh reminder that they were nothing but puppets dancing to the devil's tune. Yeom Sung-ji's thoughts immediately shift to his comrades, Park Sang-sik and Hu Man-chae. He knew that eventually, he would have to eliminate them both. Stepping into the detective's quiet apartment, he collapses onto the sofa. Both logically and emotionally, sacrificing his friends completely violated his core principles, especially right now, and definitely under the tyrant's rigged terms. Formulating a desperate plan, he prepares to query his demon. But Baphomet cuts him off, smugly asking if he's about to query which of his allies is more useful. Well, think again, because Yeom Sung-ji had a different angle. He wanted to pry into the secrets of the demons, specifically targeting Lucifer. Baphomet is utterly baffled by this human's line of questioning. Yeom Sung-ji presses on, asking how Lucifer grabbed the crown of hell in the first place, and if Baphomet could potentially overthrow him. The demon stares back in absolute shock. Of all the wild ideas, this was something Baphomet had never even contemplated. Lucifer claimed the throne because he designed the ultimate domain, the Hell of Disbelief. It was an absolute masterpiece of suffering, packed with humans, screaming and weeping in pure, unending despair. No other realm possessed such terrifying structure, versatility, and dark refinement. Its unmatched success launched Lucifer to the peak, allowing him to rapidly seize control of the entire underworld. But wait, we're missing a major player here. What happened to Dante? Well, that mortal actually received eternal life as his reward. This means Dante was the world's very first hell architect, meaning he could still be out there. Theoretically, yes, he was the original and is likely still breathing. But if Dante got dragged into hell, what would happen to Lucifer? Meanwhile, inside a grand cathedral, a priest's voice echoes, preaching holy scripture to his devoted congregation. The followers listen with intense devotion, completely unaware that this priest is Dante, architect of the Hell of Disgrace. In theory, if this legendary mortal is cast into the abyss, Lucifer would vanish. Yeom Sung-ji leaps to his feet, but Baphomet immediately shuts him down. It was just a theory. Taking down the Lord of the Underworld wouldn't be simple. He needed to pick his target, play the game, and survive as the last survivor. That was their only safe path. But our protagonist was resolute. There were too many unknown variables at play. What if Lucifer changed his mind? He could keep the game active but secretly add insane, targeted rules designed specifically to crush him. In short, he is a massive thorn in the devil's side, meaning Lucifer will likely rig the matches before the finale just to ensure he loses. They lock eyes, and Baphomet cannot deny the truth. After all, forcing high-ranking demons to slaughter each other was a cheap trick to consolidate his own dark authority. On top of that, the demon wanted absolute control over the kid, knowing his unique domain had massive potential. Baphomet stands frozen, weighing the risks. So, the demon wanted to hear the boy's master plan, since it could ignite a full-scale war for hell. Trust me, you're going to want to watch as Yeom Sung-ji extends his arm. His survival chance becomes 100%.